here in America. So if you've got the 4th of July staring at you tomorrow, if you're here in America, happy 4th, everybody. We've got the big, beautiful bill is going to be voted on today. Ray Dalio talked to DC lawmakers and has come to a shocking conclusion that you're probably going to hate as much as I do. The Diddy drama continues as there is actually a chance that he walks. This is crazy. My wife has been covering that whole drama. And there is a topic I think we have to talk about today called coercive control. My wife is scandalized by my take on that. We'll get into it. The tech war heats up as Altman puts Zuckerberg on blast. Ross Scott is joining us live today to talk about the Stop Killing Games movement. So that's exciting. Can't wait for you guys to see that. And Microsoft, unfortunately, though, lays off thousands. And finally, everybody, we're going to be talking about Alligator Alcatraz. Drew, it's a holiday vibe around here. Let's see where we go with this. I'll be very interested to see what happens with the big, beautiful bill.
Yeah.
Massey seems to be indicating that, this isn't gonna happen. I'm gonna personally shoot it in the face if I have to.
He bent the knee.
Did he? Wait, I heard that he is still a no. Grok would have me believe.
I feel like he's gonna they have an overwhelming majority in the House right now. All they need is a majority. So I think the total is 428 or 29, because that would make it an odd number. So one holdout is not gonna kind of kill it. Of course, all 200 of Democrats are gonna say no.
So you think it'll go regardless of whether he's on board, not that he'll bend the knee.
Yeah, I think, but it's one of those things. At this point in the cycle, they stripped out half the things that they promised at the beginning. Even some of the election banter that he said he was going to do, for example, the tax on tips and things like that, there now is a cap on that, so it's only the first 15,000, first 25,000 depending on how much you make, but the taxes of people making under that. So there's a lot of this Senate House negotiation math where the original version of the bill that left the House was stripped down, passed to the Senate, stripped down, passed back to the House. So they're kind of playing ping pong on it. I'm gonna bring this up from the Freedom Caucus on X. They actually came out with what they were worried about, and it was kind of like a 5-point pit.
The things they hate about the bill.
The things they hate about the bill. But I mean, it's subjective, because at the end of the day, the deficit is still going up, and there's still those same cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, stuff like that. So it's not necessarily straightforward. Where did this thing go? So it's still going to do the same things that they produced that it was. It's still going to add trillions to the debt. It does remove the state rights regulation for AI. So that was a big thing that they wanted, but now that's removed. So the original proposal of the bill, for 10 years, there was no regulations on AI from the state perspective, only the federal perspective. That has now been removed from the bill. And then, of course, Medicaid for immigrants, even though Elon himself kind of disputed that, and we can actually debunk that because he pulled up a Grok tweet. So there's a lot of speculation happening on this bill, a lot of understanding, but I just feel like it's going to get passed because Trump's pressure and his threat to primary people who go against it, Republicans and everybody's kind of just going to file party lines, and then I think it's going to end up getting through.
Yeah, we'll see. I think tying this together with the Ray Dalio thing that we'll want to play in a second is very distressing. So the reality is that we're headed towards a fiscal cliff, and the equally true reality is that to get reelected, you've got to promise people free stuff. And so the money printing just never stops. Also, the way that these bills are jammed through the system is largely they make them so big that nobody has the time to read them, or certainly nobody takes the time to read them. Even people that push their eyes across the page, the odds that you're actually going to understand all of the implications of this stuff are very low. So yeah, from just a functional standpoint, I have a deep frustration with the realities of the way that the human psyche engages with politics. And you buy yourself a lot of time, and that's how we end up in these cycles, is because they take, call it 100 to 150 years to play out, and to go from healthy, thriving, debts actually being used for growth, to completely toxic, eroding everything, the wild inequality. It just takes a long time. And so we can't help ourselves. It is crazy. And no matter how much you try to get people to look at it, you run into what I always feel gross saying this, but it's just the reality between people that don't have the intellect to understand it and people that refuse to take the time, because I get it. They've got a life and they're trying to make ends meet. You put those two together and people are just never going to look at the patterns that are entirely predictable and thus must suffer the pain before they will make any changes. It's bananas.
Yeah, and Elon chimed in here. He retweeted a Grok prompt. Isn't it already against the law for illegal immigrants to receive health care? Yes, it is generally against federal law for undocumented immigrants to receive certain types of health insurance, specifically those funded by federal programs. Here's a detailed breakdown. Medicaid, other federal programs, undocumented immigrants are not eligible for federally funded health insurance programs like Medicaid, CHIP, Medicare.
Have you read through this already?
Yeah.
Because I've read this and I was still like, wait, what? Mm-hmm. So give us the breakdown, because I wasn't sure what this was trying to say. It seems like it's saying, look, immigrants are already not covered except for emergency care.
Yeah.
And the emergency care is the further thing that they're debating now. But I can't tell if Elon is saying that's a good thing, because I think his tweet actually says just like FYI or so you know, or something like that.
But the rhetoric was that there was a debate on the House that we need to remove a stipulation that says Medicaid is allowed for illegal immigrants. And this is saying that that's not the case. That's not
it's
true.
Already not
it's
a thing.
already not a thing. So that's where.
But so Elon Musk wants to make sure that fewer dollars are getting spent. He is as concerned as I am about the fiscal cliff that we're driving towards. So why would he be showing people that, if that's the thing that they're using to argue, like, we've got to reduce expenses? Why would he go out of his way to say the thing you're trying to reduce expenses on isn't going to help? Wouldn't he just be like, thank God they're trying to reduce expenses on something? Or is he saying you're barking up the wrong tree?
Yeah, to me, I think he's exposing the kabuki theater of it all. Is that we're all talking about like, hey, this is why I have a beef with the bill. But he's like, yeah, that's not really the beef that's happening in the bill.
Right.
There's other spending cuts and other things that should have taken more priority over it.
Other spending cuts? That's where this gets confusing. The reality is that you ask for a $5 trillion debt ceiling increase, which my understanding is it's the largest debt ceiling increase of all time, because you know that you're going to print, meaning you're going to deficit spend. And so as a Milton Friedman reminder to everybody, you are taxed on every single dollar the government spends, whether it's officially budgeted or it is deficit spending, which people don't get their heads around. It's just some taxes. You're told about $4 trillion worth of the taxes, and then you're lied to about $2 trillion worth of taxes. But all $6 trillion you will be taxed for. So that's where, I don't know, I think that tweet is maybe counterproductive. I think it, instead of FYIing it and trying to be coy, it's like you just got to come out and say the thing. And that's the thing. The thing is that if you spend $6 trillion and you need an extra $5 trillion, you will be taxed for that money. And then when you realize that you can no longer make the payments to service that debt, you'll default and it will cause people to be murdered. It's that fucking straightforward. And when people hide and dance and don't just say the thing, we get where people are like, I'm just confused. Like, I hear it's a bad thing if we hit the debt ceiling, so just pass it. And that's where we're going to end up. And then because of all the last minute negotiating and nobody can quite hold in their head where everybody is, what's actually getting in the bill, you're literally softening people by fatiguing them. Yeah. You fatigue them, you put them under time pressure, you slip in things, you remove a couple things, and no one can map like, wait, am I getting what I want or not? And it's maddening. So the deep dive coming out on Monday, please watch it. The deep dive on Monday is a parallel between what happened with Argentina, who rivaled America in the early 1900s. So call it 1913. Argentina was able to get more young immigrants to choose Argentina than America could. So America, the place we know is the land of opportunity, built on immigrants. They were having an easier time getting people. And what ends up happening is Argentina ends up being so successful that they just speed run the debt cycle. And so they start taking on, because at first the growth, you take on the debt allows you its true leverage. So you bring on $1 billion in debt and you get $2 billion in growth. And so it's like, hey, smartest debt we ever took on. And that is where debt works. But then all of a sudden the growth starts slowing down and you're like, well, we have to borrow 2 billion now and we're getting 500 million in growth. And so then you're like, oh, we have to borrow 4 billion, but oh God, we're still not getting the 4 billion. Maybe you borrow the 4 and you get it back up to 2, but you're never able to get the ratio right again. And so now you're just constantly chasing that productivity high. You're not able to get back to it. Tale as old as time, because innovation is brutally difficult. And they end up going pure socialist. And of course, guess what happens? Revolution. Yay, what a surprise. And then they have like 7 or 8 coups. I mean, it's literally ridiculous how many times. But they go into 100 years of sliding backwards and they start as a developed nation and they actually become a developing nation because they go backwards. And what I'm trying to get people to understand is that will happen in America. It is a mathematical certainty. We are on that path. And this bill is how you get $5 trillion closer to going off the cliff.
Yeah. Ray Dalio said he tried. He went to Washington.
I was recently down in Washington, D.C., meeting with senior people on both sides, the Republican side and the Democratic side, about the budget deficit. And virtually everybody agrees that you have to get the budget deficit down to 3% of GDP. And then I say, why can't we make a pledge that you will get it down to 3%? And they explain the absolutist policies that must exist. And those are that you must make statements like, I will absolutely pledge not to raise your taxes, or I will absolutely pledge not to reduce your benefits. So that's the equivalent of saying, I will absolutely pledge not to change the trajectory we're on in order to have a better set of circumstances than the likely financial crash that we're going.
Dude, Ray Dalio for real is, people look at him, I think they see a grandpa figure, somebody very sweet. And what they fail to understand is Ray Dalio has made more money by betting on movements in the market based on an understanding of the historical, what he calls the big debt cycle. So he does all this research, spends 30 years in the market, 37 years, decades and decades and decades in the market, making bets. Nobody's made more money doing it than him. But also he's traveled the world. He's advised China. He's advised the Middle East. Like this guy, everywhere where you see economic prosperity, like Ray's in the background, like whispering in their ear. He was connected with Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore. Just like he really understands this game and he tells people exactly what to do, how to get their economies off the ground. And the people that listen to him just absolutely thrive and crush it. And he is in Ray's way, screaming at the top of his lungs, trying to get people to understand exactly what's happening, that this is a math equation. Yeah. And hey, they just won't do it. Ray writes about this endlessly. The human mind is knowable. This is what I mean, that we live in a deterministic universe. We're billiard balls. Our brain processes data in a certain way. We have a nature, and that nature just plays out over and over. And so, look, I get it. I accept my fate as the person who cannot stop himself from yelling into the void. Mm-hmm. But man, do I want people to look at this and go, oh, we really do have to change our behavior, because there is a way to avoid all the pain and suffering. Ray's outlined it in 3 books. I've outlined it now in 2 different videos. I'll keep talking about it, but enough people really have to go, oh, that's what we have to do. Otherwise, the pain and suffering is just too great. But humans are really bad at doing something ahead of time to avoid suffering. They're way better at, we've now been suffering for 100 years, and so I'm willing to try something different. But 100 years is a long time, Drew. Like, that's really crazy, and it really does take that.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like it's going to change, and what seems like really needs to happen is...
What do we do about that, Drew? Like, if we really believe that statement, it's really not going to change. What do we do?
Because I think it comes down to, we need to stop outsourcing our society. Like, we need to...
Say more.
I think we've gotten to a point right now where we're used to, I pay taxes, government does thing. Uh-huh. And now I'm holding the government accountable.
Did you know that more than 30% don't pay federal taxes?
Are we saying that they are receiving income and they're not taxing it? Are we saying that we're using loopholes? What is that 30% number coming from?
Well, it comes from the IRS. They publish that statistic. It's going to be every possible combination of loophole. Hey, just rough year for you. You didn't make enough money to qualify. It will come from, there have been years where, because the business is taking losses, if we're investing, like when we were investing millions of dollars into game development, those were not years where I was paying taxes. So that's not even an accusation. Like there are very legitimate reasons why people might not pay taxes, but I didn't realize the number was 30%, north of 30%. Yeah. So anyway.
But in all of those scenarios, they're not making any money. So I don't know if that would help the situation. I just think that we need to start empowering ourselves to have a more active role in the government. I think this one direction, I vote for you, I pay taxes into the void, and then I close my eyes and hope my community gets better. Like, we can no longer do that anymore. I think we need to start being more individual freedoms and individual responsibility, and we need to start bringing things to.
Can we pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, Drew?
I mean, I guess we have to.
Let's go. You had me at bootstraps, Drew. I'm so here for this. I totally agree. Yeah. I need to do my part. I need to say the words that I need to say. It is, I'm deeply passionate about this. Never thought I would be, but it is, it's important. We'll say the things. Hopefully we can get some small corner of the universe to then say their part, and hopefully that spreads and we can avoid some of the pain and suffering. All right, I'm in the mood to fight with chat. How are they doing today?
No beef so far.
Really?
Tom's take, if what Ray says happens and they don't make a change, what is the outcome with us racing toward the cliff, but AI is racing toward us?
So first of all, Kip Moon, what a long time upstanding member of the community you've been. Thank you for being here. Okay, so let's take this one at a time. Don't scroll off just so I can look back and remember. If we don't listen, we do become Argentina, in that you will default. When you default, you create your economy, and then it becomes, even once people get to a level of angry that they're at now, it's very hard to unwind that because everybody's emotional. When people are emotional, they quite literally are not thinking rationally. And when you're dealing with a math equation, you need people to be rational. And so the problem is, when you default, that's when people are standing in bread lines. That's when people are actually killing each other. And so then people are even more emotional. They're more fearful. They're more likely to turn to the government with their hand out and just say, take care of me. And the problem is, then that's how you drag this problem out forever and ever and ever. I don't even like to say the sentences of what actually has to happen in those moments, because I know they'll be clipped out of context and I'll be made to look like a psychopath. And I actually see quite frequently in the chat, people are like, ooh, Tom's a fascist. So I know I'm only going to make it worse. But here is the reality. When you get to that point, and the world is on fire and the government is simply printing money, your only solution is to let people go hungry to the point where they go, I don't want to be hungry anymore, and I'm going to find a solution myself. I'm not going to turn to anybody else. If I'm going to have to learn to hunt and farm my backyard, then that's what I'm going to do. And you end up pushing the responsibility back down to the individual, which is exactly what you need to do. But that means some of those individuals will get left behind. They will not be able to keep up. They won't be able to do the things. And that's why society ends up skitching out, because we just cannot, understandably so. I love that humans have this deep compassion. They don't want to see people go through that kind of thing. And so, again, not being in a rational mindset, they're in an emotional mindset. They say, government, you cannot allow this to happen. So the government goes, you're right. They start borrowing a ton of money, printing, and they're creating the dystopia at an even faster rate. And unfortunately, it doesn't solve the problem. And this is why you see this like hilarious swing back and forth, left, right, left, right, left, right in Argentina, as they go, well, the left policies aren't working. They swing to the right policies aren't working. They swing back to the left policies aren't working. Because what they don't realize is you have to hurt everybody in just the right amounts to get back on track. But everybody is emotional, so they're on a team. Yeah. Once you're on teams, it's like Ray was saying, I absolutely guarantee I will never. And so everybody is just like, you swing in these hard directions. And I know I've talked about this before, but there's a famous black box recording of a pilot whose entire, 747 ends up crashing with 250 people on board or whatever it was. And he just keeps saying, I can't believe it's swinging back again, because he didn't realize that the autopilot had been turned on. So he's like fighting against it. And so the plane just keeps going up and down, up and down, up and down, or left, right. I forget what it's doing. But it just keeps seesawing back and forth, and that's what ends up crashing it. And that's exactly what happens to the economy. You just whiplash back and forth between leftist policies, rightist policies. You're just going from one extreme to the other, instead of doing the hyper-disciplined, extremely rational, this is what we have to do. And nobody rails against wealth confiscation harder than me. Nobody rails against higher taxes harder than me, but it is part of the 4 levers that you have to pull. And 2 of them are depressive, and then 2 of them are inflationary. And you just have to accept you have to do both. So you're going to have to confiscate some wealth. You're going to have to start raising taxes. You're going to have to print money. You're going to have to deregulate. Like, you have to do the full basket of goods. And if you don't pull all of your levers, you don't get to the other side. And so everybody ends up doing an ugly deleveraging, which almost always looks exactly the same. Just print money.
Yeah. Nightgale Wing. Okay, at what point does the U.S. default then? Like, give a number.
It's 5 to 10 years, mathematically.
Oof.
So you can speed it up or slow it down. And so no country has ever avoided it on a long enough timeline. So every empire falls. So the odds that we don't fall are, I'll call it 0, just from a historical perspective, but you can swing it by 50, 75 years. So wouldn't we all like to think that we've got 50 years ahead of us where we're still the global hegemon, that we give our kids plenty of time to figure this out, but that requires austerity. That requires austerity. Austerity, we got to stop giving things fancy words. Austerity just means I'm not giving you any more free shit. So you're not getting as much healthcare as you want. You're going to have to retire far later. You're not getting as much SNAP benefits that you must.
Charles Nolan Jr., great question. If I act as a reasonable person who can't impact the path of our national fiscal policies, how should I react as a reasonable person? What are proper strategies for building resilience? Yeah,
so this is where you go into protect you and yours mode and offer anybody advice that asks, but recognize you can't make the changes for them. So in a time like this, again, please don't take investing advice from me. Use me as like one way to triangulate what is really true. The markets are very complicated. I am not trying to compete against somebody like Ray Dalio. So just please keep that in mind. But I will tell you the directional idea. You have to understand that given that everybody does the ugly deleveraging, which is to just print money, that causes inflation, will ultimately lead to hyperinflation, will lead to the inability to pay back debt. You are going to have to get into inflation-resistant assets. So gold is the one that has withstood the test of time the most. Bitcoin is the one, it has the highest volatility, but that means it also has the highest upside potential, but is also inflation resistant by design. Getting into assets, I think home prices have to come down. So, but that doesn't help you right now in this moment, but you need to get something like a home that you can actually live in, so that even if the price volatility swings around, if you owe a manageable amount of money on that, then you'll be fine. So honestly, like a tiny house with something that lets you grow a garden just isn't a terrible idea. And look, that's like disaster scenario, but like it's not as crazy as it sounds. So my housekeeper has a home and she's got a little garden. And so I'm like, yeah, facts, let's go. So, and she lives in LA-ish. So it's not like you have to move out into the woods or you have to go to Colorado. I'm just saying be thoughtful. And I don't want anybody thinking you have to grow your own groceries. I'm not doing that. I don't plan to do that. But it's like you do want to be thoughtful about how this stuff can drag out. So anyway, inflation resistance is the key.
And Margie Noor said, and weapons. Don't forget the weapons.
God, I hate that that's true. Yeah, depending on where you live, people get desperate. Desperate people do desperate things. We're not there today, but that is the inevitable outcome of all of this.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
What do you say to people that are saying that AI is going to get us out of this.
It might. So look, growth is one of the things you want to focus on. When you look at a beautiful deleveraging, you're trying to bring back the middle class. The reason you want to bring back the middle class is the perspective from which you're not angry at the disparities that you see. When you're poor and you see middle class people, you're fine. When you're poor and you see rich people, you freak the fuck out. So we have to get ourselves in a situation where the mass of people are in the middle. And so they're looking at poor people and going, whew, thank God I'm not there. Looking at rich people and they're going, hey, I hope I'm there one day. That's when society feels good. Also, the wealthy people who are innovating, creating things, they have a thriving economic base that they can sell to, and that keeps the engine going. So getting the middle class back is the key. And there are a few things that you can do to get there in a beautiful deleveraging. And if you keep your eye on that prize and you understand I'm pulling these 4 levers as a way to make sure that we get back to that, we get back to growth, right? So you're, when you do debt forgiveness, you're damaging the economy. It's going to contract because one person's debt is another person's asset. And so when that liability goes away, that asset goes away. And so you just made that person who would otherwise be able to invest in the economy, you just stop them from being able to invest. That's bad. When you print money, you get velocity of money moving. So people, if they believe that the currency is stable, then they'll spend that money. If you print money and people hoard it, you have a problem. If you print money and people spend it, then you can combat some of the deflationary, crisis-led deflationary. Remember, there's a big difference between innovation-led deflation, yay, crisis-led deflation, boo. So you offset some of that crisis-led deflation. And so everything has to be done in like these small amounts in a balance, watching how people react, because ultimately this is a game of confidence. If people aren't confident in the economy, then the economy dies, even if there are no fundamental problems. So, and crazy but true, if people believe in the economy, even if you're a little bit shaky, you can use that confidence to get you back going in a direction that will let you shore up the fundamentals.
W Finance and Stocks also said, you analyze so much left and right, but Jordan Peterson says it's more fruitful to analyze policy, not left and right so much anymore. Why do you...
Jordan Peterson is not thinking clearly. And I love Jordan. But Jordan doesn't spend enough time on economics to understand what happens in a populist moment. The policies matter because ultimately that's where you're going to make contact. But the reason that we are spiraling is precisely because people are in an emotional state. And if you don't understand why politically we're going like this, you will be very confused why historically in America, whatever party was closer to the center would get elected. And that just isn't the case. And this is why the left right now is asking itself, do we move back towards the middle to get reelected, or do we go more extreme? And the answer is they're going more extreme, as evidenced by Mamdani. Now, Mamdani is partly an echo of the like tiered system. I forget what they call it, rank order. And so maybe that's not truly indicative of where the country's psychology is. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I think that while Jordan is 100% right that it only matters what actually gets put into policy, what gets put into policy is downstream of where the culture is at and what people are going to vote for. Because politicians are amoral sociopaths for the most part, and they're simply going to do and say what they need to get elected, period, end of story. So if the populace is crying out for free stuff, they're going to be promised free stuff.
Nightingale Wing chimed back in and said, so just to be clear, default because the U.S. keeps spending money based on the current projections. And
Yes.
I've heard you say this number, 130% of debt to GDP ratio is when collapse starts to happen.
Correct.
And is that where the 5 to 10 years is coming from?
Yes. Yeah, the rate at which we're accumulating debt just puts you on that clock. And I'm sure like someone like Thomas Massey may have actually run the math, and it's like 7.2 years exactly to the day based on the way that the interest will compound. But growth is the thing that's hiding in the wings. And this is what people are talking about with AI. It is possible that AI unlocks so much productivity growth that we grow our way out of this. But ooh, buddy, I think banking on that is a suicide run. This is like an adjustable rate mortgage. where it's like, I'm going to take on a house that I can't afford, not even a little bit, but hey, I just know I'm going to make more money down the road. It's going to be all good. Yeah. And then 2008, answer the question, how many people actually find themselves in that position? And the answer is almost none. So yeah, precisely.
Last one, why hasn't Japan collapsed? Because they do have a higher GDP to debt ratio.
Yeah, so Japan is the 2%. So you'll hear me say, over the last 500 years, 98% of all countries that have had a debt to GDP ratio over 130 have ended up in collapse. Japan is the only one. Japan has a very unique culture. And doing a deep dive on that to figure out the specifics of what exactly they've done is, I think, going to be necessary. But I will just say Japan is now showing signs of collapse. So I wouldn't get too excited. I think Japan has only been able to forestall it by a couple of decades. Yeah. I still think they're going to crash.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. Okay, let's talk about this Diddy thing. Now, Diddy has been found not guilty of sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy in a mixed verdict, but he has been found guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution. I think it's egregious that domestic violence isn't one of these cases, but I don't know if it's a statute.
There was a reason they didn't go after him.
It might be a statute of limitations thing.
Maybe you're right.
But I just feel like
he kicked her like a football, man.
It's vile. It's sick. It's disgusting. I want to be clear. We do not condone those actions. However, beating your spouse is not sex trafficking and it's not racketeering.
God, I wanted to see how you were going to finish that sentence. That was like playing out in slow motion in my mind. I want to be clear, we don't condone those actions, but beating your spouse.
It was just one of those things. Like I seen somebody that was like, "Oh yeah, the Clinton sex ring is never going to get taken down." And I'm like, who do y'all think Diddy is? Like, I think they want him to be Epstein. They want him to be this like malicious political like orchestrator of the pedophilia ring that was in DC. But like, I just feel like that's not this case, and he was kind of the brunt of that. It's kind of like what happened with Harvey Weinstein, as he was like, his actions were the actions of every other Hollywood fuckboy in the history, and they just needed a head, and he was the head at that time. But I remember you said you wanted to talk about like the coercive control of it all.
Yeah, so Lisa and I wish Lisa were here to really give us the breakdown, but she was scandalized. She overheard, when she was here and we were talking about it, she texted me afterwards. I don't know how much of this she's going to be comfortable with me talking about. But hey, we're going to do it anyway. She was like, wait, were you joking? Because I said, like, don't get me started on coercive control. Because she was saying, I had said something, and she goes, don't get me started on that. Like, they should have allowed coercive control. And I was like, don't get me started on it, because I think that has second and third order consequences that are crazy and should not be allowed. Now, we had discussed it once previously, like a month ago. And so I thought she understood my position, and only to find out she does not understand my position. And boy, do I hope she's in the feed right now, because it'd be amazing if you're listening, if you came down. But I don't think that putting coercive control as a concept, which I'll define in a second, on the law is wise. So coercive control is that a person can be so powerful that they essentially put you under a spell, and that you as a person are not able to say no to them. You no longer have your free will in that situation. Now, we all know, just for consistency, I don't actually believe in free will, but you need to act as if it is true. So in all of this, what I'm saying is, I think there is coercive control between the state and a citizen. I think the state can apply coercive control to individuals because the power dynamic is so massive. They have the monopoly on violence. They can imprison you forever. They can kill you. No one can stand up to the state. Like that's just a whole different level. So coercive control is a thing. Like, there is such a thing. This is what I mean when I say anybody who thinks that the government can never take my crypto. Bullshit. Read about the Gulag Archipelago, man. If the state wants something badly from you enough, they're going to get it. And sure, maybe you let them kill you first, but did you really win? And even that's like hyper rare. So you've got that, the state versus the individual. Coercive control, I'll say, is real. Adults versus children. I'll say coercive control is real. They have not developed their brains fully. They actually don't have the level of what we'll call free will that adults have. So yeah, that one seems real to me. So all of the adults should not be involved with kids for a whole host of reasons. Totally, I'll sign off on coercive control. Saying that an adult can be put in a situation where they actually have no free will, but are not being kidnapped. Like if you've been under, if you are kidnapped, someone's got a weapon against you and they're like, I'm going to kill you, like that kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. If the threat is credible, but if it's, you're a musician and you want your album to drop and you're on my label and you're going to like have sex with me and you're going to do it because you want your career to move forward, to say that that person does not have free will in that situation, I don't buy, because that is going to get abused. That person is grotesque. That person is disgusting. That person is amoral. That person should be put on blast. That person should not have a job. That person certainly shouldn't be in power. They're clearly abusing it. Like there are a whole host of horrible things that you can prove and go down for somebody like that. But do I think that they have like some ability to cast a magic spell? No, I do not.
Magic spell might be the wrong word. I think when people evaluate the consequences of each choice, even though it's something that might directly counterbalance with their morals, they will still do it in order to maintain their position in that.
That's a them problem.
But I mean, you can say that that's a them problem, but that is a level of, I want to say no, but in this moment I can't say no.
Yes, you can.
But then the second order consequences of me saying no, now I have to deal with the ramifications of that. And maybe my life isn't set up that way.
Welcome to life. Life is hard, man. I get it. I'm not saying they're in a good situation, but you're really going to be like, yeah, that would have been too hard to say no. That's crazy.
Amen. Like living from survival is different from living from like a.
How do you feel about Enron?
The company?
Yeah.
That I don't. In what context? I don't.
Do you know the story of Enron?
I just know that they were a fake company, or like
weren't a fake company. They were a great company, full of some of the smartest people on planet Earth. But they took down a whole lot of people's retirements because they were lying nonstop. Now, a bunch of the people in it were like, I didn't want to go along with this, but they were so powerful and I was going to lose my job. And so I just needed to keep my head down. Fuck you. No way. Like, if you don't have the courage to stand up and say that these guys are like fucking evil and they are doing things that are going to ruin God knows how many lives, sorry. And I get it. You're going to lose your job. I get it. Brutal. And Lord knows, I hope no one ends up in a situation where you find yourself like, man, I've worked so hard to get here and now I got to like play the martyr card. That's rough. Take another one. The guys diving to the Titanic. It implodes, kills them all.
The dudes who just did the
Titan. Yep.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the company, but this what is it? Seagate?
I think it's Ocean.
Yeah, the dude with the Xbox controller.
Yeah. So there were people there that quit. They were like, this is crazy. This guy is saying that he's going to buy senators and circumvent safety procedures. I'm the fuck out. Yeah, that's the only response. There's no like, well, I don't want to get fired. I don't want to get in trouble. At some point, man, we just have to say, people are adults. They make their own decisions. We are going to be put in hard positions in life. I get that. And all of us in that moment get to decide how we're going to react.
Oh, okay. Because I feel like we're painting with a broad brush right now. So let's start like really small. Let's build up.
Yep.
Because I think that we've all been in that situation, whether it was your first job back when you were on the employee side.
Yep.
There was a time where like you wanted to leave and like you had to stay for something, or a manager asked you to do something, or your schedule unexpectedly changed. And you could have said, no, I'm not doing this, and you would have got fired from your job. Yeah. But instead you were like, no, I need this job for the higher goal that I'm pursuing, so I'm going to say yes.
There was no red line that was being crossed.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So then that's
I'm going to go along to get along if there's no moral implications.
yeah. So there's certain things where you like, if this was my company, I wouldn't do it like this. But whatever, I'll just put in my time, put my head down, do what I gotta do, and get home.
100%.
Okay, so then so we agree on that base layer. Sometimes we say yes to things that we might not agree with, but in certain situations we can rationalize why that's okay.
Yep.
And then now we go one level higher when now we're adding the like flight or freeze mechanism of it all. And then there's those people that I want to say no, but there's something in me that triggered, whether it was a trauma, my past experience, something like that, that paralyzed me in this decision. And my lack of response was taken as a yes. And then now I'm forced in that situation.
Forced? In what way?
In the fact that because I didn't verbally say no, it was assumed that my silence was a yes. And then I had to continue into the situation.
How much empathy do you have for Ghislaine Maxwell?
That's Epstein's wife or Epstein's girlfriend.
Yep.
Why would I have empathy for her?
That's my question. So what if her argument was he had control over me? I could feel that something was wrong, but it was just, I was terrified for what it was going to mean for me. I was terrified that my future was never going to be what I wanted it to be. And so, yes, I suppose you could say that I encouraged some women to come along that might not otherwise. And I sort of knew that he was using me as a way to make them feel safe, but I didn't feel safe. And so I wouldn't
say that argument is valid because I feel like she comes from a position of like she has money. She comes from a position of privilege. She has the ability to say no. And the fact that she was a girlfriend and not in marriage means that her life
is it just about money?
It's not just about money. It's about alternative options. What are my alternative options? How can I recoup the loss of this decision? If I say no in this situation.
But what if she would be fine? She could live a middle to lower middle class life.
Then okay. Because I feel like I'm saying one thing and I'm like bouncing off of other things and I'm trying to keep us on this.
So let me say what I hear you saying.
Okay.
There are some people for whom the consequences will be so dire, they should go along with heinous shit. And I'm saying, nope.
Yeah, I'm saying that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that they get paralyzed in those moments.
That's a them problem.
Okay.
So what about?
But if you disagree, like, say more.
I'm
just saying, if you're an adult, life is going to put you in brutal situations. And the people that we should hold up as paragons of like, this is how we should act, are the people that did the hard thing in the hard moment. And I'm saying the second you make it a legal precedent that somebody can be like, I was under their control. I was so afraid that I wouldn't be able to make money, that my kids were going to go hungry. Dude, that's the excuse everyone's going to take. And then it just becomes all about, well, did they have like the ability to make a living or whatever? Like if they said no, listen, it's going to set them back. And I'm sure that there are plenty of women that didn't get movie roles because they decided they weren't going to sleep with Harvey Weinstein. And the honest answer is the industry should have ferreted that kind of behavior out way faster. But the women that say yes, that is a perfectly valid choice if they decide to make that. And the women that say no, I think that it's not only a valid choice, it's like a damn, like that's dope. She's not for play.
Do you believe in affluenza? Like, have you ever heard
affluenza?
Affluenza. It was that
influenza, I know, but affluenza.
It was that court case where like a rich kid ended up getting into like a domestic drunk driving accident, ended up killing somebody. And the defense from the legal side was because he came from a rich family, he didn't know how to have discipline in that situation.
That's crazy.
Okay.
I mean, if he's 16, then it's like, okay, the leeway that I will give any 16-year-old, I will give to this 16-year-old. Okay. But that's about brain development. It doesn't have anything to do with
like environment and all that.
Yeah. Like if somebody grows up in the hood, like, listen, I have stories from people that grew up in the hood that will make you blush in terms of things that their parents like encouraged, like, whoa. Once they're an adult, people have to take responsibility for their actions.
So if I'm scared that I'm going to get physically attacked, is that something that should be like evaluated in this?
So
or
I'm in a gang.
Say no,
let's just make it really hard. Yeah. I'm in a gang. If I don't shoot this guy, they're going to shoot me. Should I get off for having shot somebody? No, obviously not.
I should have got
Does
shot.
my fucking heart break that you found yourself in that situation? Absolutely. That is devastating. And would I have empathy for you while you serve your prison sentence? Yes, I would. But I would not be like, guys, come on, you can't send this guy to jail. No, I would not.
Bree, that crazy chicken lady, came in and said, consent isn't consent when you're scared out of your mind, deprived of vital information, or not in a position to realistically survive if you say no, and survival has multiple dimensions beyond physical.
Yeah, we just disagree. I don't think that you want to create a legal standard where an adult can say this person was so much more powerful than me that I was no longer able to make the quote unquote right decision. Now, I get it. My wife doesn't agree with me. My wife thinks I'm out of my mind. And it's so clear to me. We either think adults can think and act for themselves or we don't. And all of us are going to be put in terrible situations in our life. And we have to decide what we're going to do in that moment. And I'm just saying, you got to take responsibility. And it doesn't mean that I don't take an actress who their whole life they've been trying to get into Hollywood and they encounter somebody like Harvey Weinstein. That's brutal, man. That's horrible. I hate everything about that. And I want to make sure that guy gets the fuck out. But unfortunately, that's the situation that she finds herself in. And she's got to make a decision. Do I stay or do I go? I'm not giving adults a pass because I'm not going to give myself a pass. So if I give myself, well, I'm never going to give myself a pass. So if I don't give myself a pass, then the only way that I'm looking at this is, well, I'm smarter than other people. I'm more moral than other people. No, I'm not. I'm just saying all of us as humans are going to be asked, what will we tolerate in our lives? And I get it. Sometimes we're going to come up short. I am not some moral paragon who's never done anything stupid. I'm just saying the times I've done something stupid, I'm just all 10 fingers of responsibility back at myself. You've got to do differently next time.
Alex in Wonderland came in and also said, consent for vulnerable people, people under the influence, people who are developmentally delayed. I suppose once you are a victim, you see consent differently.
I'm not sure what they mean by that. So remember, all I'm talking about is coercive control. I think there's already laws on the books that if somebody's inebriated and you take advantage of them, you're the criminal. Mm-hmm. Nice and easy. So yeah, that sounds like rape to me. So pretty easy.
From because Brutus Lugo is going crazy right now.
Tell me why.
So Harvey Weinstein.
He thinks he's innocent. Whoa.
No. He thinks that's your take because you're saying people can't be forced to do things, and that if they when Harvey invited him up to the hotel, they should have just ran away. They shouldn't have gotten to the hotel.
That is correct.
And because they got into the room and he slept with them, and then they got the road, didn't get the road, whatever happened, they made that choice. Those are two consenting adults, whatever. As long as he didn't physically tie them down or hold them down, that's the line versus the implication of if you come through this door, you get this. If you leave, you don't.
Yeah. So in those situations, I would not say that is rape. I would, however, say that he's a monster who is abusing people, taking advantage of them, leveraging his power in a way that I find morally repugnant. But that's different than the law. So this is a question about, can one adult have mind control over another adult? And I'm saying no. Mm-hmm. Bill Gates can offer me whatever he wants. I'm not going to do it. If it's not something I want to do, I'm not going to do it. That would have been just as true of me when I was poor as it is now. And I really wanted to be successful, but not at the cost of my soul, not at the cost of my own respect. So anyway, to me, this boils down to, do you think I look at adults and I say, you have to take responsibility for the choices that you make. People that are fighting for coercive control say, there are some people that can put me in a position where I would compromise myself. And I'm just saying that strikes me as a terrible idea. That's a terrible way to live your life. That's a terrible story to tell yourself. Mm-hmm. You need to say, I'm responsible for whether I say yes or no to something. Now, if I say no and somebody overpowers me, Now we've got kidnapping, rape, on and on. So, and again, it's amoral, it's grotesque, but people need to take responsibility for their decisions.
And I think that's an important line to make, is that while you're not saying it's morally right, you're just saying legally you don't want to set that precedent.
So this is like, from where you're sitting, this is deeply unpopular. Like, this is crazy.
From the chat, it's deeply unpopular.
Chat
It's crazy. So
give me the best argument. Tom Bilyeu once again completely ignoring cult programming. Tom Bilyeu once again saying that if you're going down the wrong direction and you feel that somebody is
their argument is not everyone is high agency.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. And I'm just saying that is the world's worst legal precedent to set, that some people are cognitively incapable of, they're not retarded, but they're cognitively incapable of thinking for themselves.
Yeah, but how do we rectify that? Like 30% of people aren't good enough to get shot at in war, but you expect those 30% to...
Do you want to put on the books if you have an IQ of 70 or less? I could do that.
Because it seems like, that's why I said earlier, I think it's a broad swipe, because not everybody, if a person is high agency, then what you're saying is true. But
here's the thing, with the law, eventually it becomes a very specific line that you either cross or you don't cross. And I'm saying, what line do you want to draw? For me, it's very simple. The state versus an individual, coercive control is real. Adults versus children, coercive control is real. A normal cognitive person against somebody who's retarded, coercive control is real. Yeah, I have no problem with any of those. But people that are of some cognitive line, let's call it 85 IQ. If you're 85 IQ or higher, then you need to take responsibility for your actions. And this really does feel like the central thing that I'm out of step with culture on is, dude, everything in my life tells me everything gets better when you take responsibility for yourself, for your decisions, and you say, I'm in this situation, I'm in control here, I need to take ownership, and your life gets better. And people that are like, no, like you can just bamboozle people, you can get sucked into something, that if you get into a cult, it's not your fault. All of that to me is a non-useful way to live your life. It will not lead you to the goals you want to get to. Now, if you are cognitively incapable of navigating the world, that's a different thing. And so we can define that. We can draw a line and say we have to find a way to test IQ where people can't sandbag it. But like, if we could know, like, this is their cognitive level, sure, no problem with that. But for your average person, no, definitely not.
Can you hit this from a different angle? So this is like, if people are being victimized, but it's in this frame, then you don't think there should be law for that. But because having a law for this would end up, like, it could go bad, how? How could it be abused?
Have you seen Gone Girl?
I have not.
Like, people, listen, guys will abuse it just as fast as women, but it is very easy to point to if somebody wants to savage your reputation. And we saw this like when Me Too was breaking, where people would have sex, regret it, and then after the fact report it as unconsensual. And then guys started doing it as well, because they were like, I don't want it to be reported on me, so I'm going to report her first. Like, that's the kind of madness this devolves into when you don't believe that people can make their own decisions. And I think this will naturally bend towards women can be coercively controlled by men, and that becomes the like knock-on effect of where now it just gets very weird, where you give somebody this card that they can play against anybody at any time and say, no, they coercively controlled me. And it's like, hold on, like, what are we talking about here? So I think both sides of the equation. If anybody thinks they hear me saying that there's Harvey Weinstein can do whatever the fuck he wants, and people either agree or they don't, I'm saying there's a difference between legal and moral. What he did was immoral. What he did was monstrous. What he did is god-awful. It is terrible. The industry should have gotten rid of him long ago. You don't want to be around people like that. I wouldn't want to see anybody act like that. It is absolutely god-awful. But the reality is that adults need to take responsibility for thinking for themselves. It's interesting. I can feel that like this is just not compelling to anybody. This is another screaming into the void. If you don't take responsibility for your life, then you will live by the law of accident. If you live by the law of accident, you will never get where you want to go.
That's like interesting to me because this whole free will determinism thing. But we're gonna come back to that.
Well, I mean, let's do it right now.
No, because Kevin Judd had a really good sentence,
Kevin.
and I think that this sums it up.
Okay.
They said when you say I had no choice, you're only saying I had no better choices, but you always have the ability to choose what you do or don't.
Correct. Again, we're assuming that you have an average level of cognitive ability. For people who are legitimately retarded, their coercive control is real for them. They are easy to trick. But man, for the average person, at some point, you just gotta say, like, I am in charge of my life. No one is coming to save me. And we are going to find ourselves in incredibly difficult situations. And we've got to have the courage to say, I know what my values are. I know what my morals are. This violates it. And I'm not willing to trade them for this thing that I want to get in this moment. And I get that it's tough, man. And I get how gross it is. I was as grossed out by the what's his face stuff as anybody. We were just talking about
Diddy?
Weinstein.
Oh, Weinstein.
So, or Diddy. I don't know the Diddy stuff that well, but at the headline level, that shit was crazy. And he beat his girlfriend. So to me, that's like full stop, done. Like, you're physically violent. Fuck you, straight to jail. Literally straight to jail.
Absolutely.
So I'm just talking about, man, people got to own their own minds. They've got to own their own minds.
Yeah. Okay, so I was about to download Determine, the free will book.
Yeah.
With audiobook.
And now after this, you're like, no, I'm not.
No, it was 14 hours, and I have stuff to
bro,
do.
you got to do all 14.
No, thank you.
At 2X. It's 7.
So instead, I watched your interview at 2X.
Okay.
Your interview with him for 2 hours, and I got through it on my drive home. He believes that there are accidents, and there is luck, and things happen by chance.
Sure.
Which to me is counter to some of the principles and things that you put out.
Well, I can tell you right now that he would be arguing with my take on this viciously. He would be furious. He would say, Tom, you didn't understand a fucking thing in my book. You idiot. You peasant. Like, what are you thinking? He would legitimately, I think, be very upset. He wouldn't use words like that, but he would be very upset. And his whole reason for writing the book is to say, none of us are in control of anything. And so he would probably come down along the lines of, you need to lock Harvey Weinstein up because he can't control himself and he is a monster. And you need to completely exonerate anybody that he had under his spell because that's just the way that evolution made them. And they're literally just billiard balls. And so you don't have to worry about them because they're automata and he's automata. It's just he's dangerous automata and they're not.
Okay.
I'm saying you can't live your life like that.
I was going in a different direction because as I was reading through it, or as I was listening through it, it was that you are only reacting to your biology, and your biology is rooted in beliefs, and I forgot what the other word was.
Values.
Yeah, beliefs, values,
and biology. That's the trifecta
beliefs, values,
of what controls your frame of reference.
But your belief and your values, I feel like you have quote unquote control over those things.
Yeah, he would disagree with that, but yes. I agree.
Yeah. So
you have to act as if you do.
Yes. But so that's my whole thing is like, if what is meant to be will be, and I don't have control of the future of my life, and me waking up early and working out because I want to get better is something that I'm not controlling, but it's coming from a belief that I have, and I can easily change that belief.
Mm-hmm.
I think I could change values. I think we could change. So that's the thing that I'm pushing up against is like, yes, biology, if you force yourself to laugh, you will feel happy. I get that. There's certain biological things you can kind of hack yourself. But I think you are in control of your beliefs and your values. So to say that is a consequence of something, that's the part where I don't see it. That's the friction for me.
I think because you're trying to make sense of what is ultimately unreconcilable, which is you can't stop yourself from saying the things that you just said. I can't stop myself from saying the things that I'm saying right now. And yet there is an illusion that we can make changes. And part of the illusion is profound for you because you are wired such that you can make change. So when you encounter an idea that seems better, you can go in and tool with your beliefs. Other people can't. And you didn't do anything to earn the fact that you can, though you've tricked yourself that you have done something to earn it. And the other person has not done anything to earn the fact that they can't, though a monster like me will say that they need to act as if they can. So that is the conundrum. And the reason that I say there's literally no point in living your life as if you are already, you're just pure automata, is because then you're just saying that this is all essentially a script that's playing out. It's just not and again, I can't help myself from seeing it this way because I'm a fucking automata. I understand that. But nonetheless, holding on to that frame of reference does not make sense to this automata because it makes my life feel more nihilistic, which is not a pleasant feeling, which does not lead me to the actions that I think make the world a better place. And so even though I can't stop myself from feeling that way, I'm very glad that I feel the way that I feel because it encourages me to put out ideas into the world that I hope will make people's lives better based on a set of beliefs that I couldn't help but build up, but nonetheless have built up. And so you just get into this like loop
I feel
of
like that addresses everything
nonsensicalness
over here, but like beliefs and values, they're indoctrinated in you from your surroundings, your environment.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't know. That's one of those things I take advice from people that I want to become, and I don't know if I want to become like that author. God bless him. I hope he does amazing things, but it just didn't make sense to me.
It was one of those interviews where I'm like, we agree on everything except this one final twist at the end, which is, and now how should you act in the world?
What was it like?
He's like, you lock up monsters and you let everybody else off the hook because they're automata.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying that unfortunately, even though we are automata, we respond to ideas. And so if you put that idea out there, then people are going to respond to it. And it will change the way the automata behave because they believe, oh, I don't have agency. And so I'm just going to go with my emotion. But the reality is our biology is such that the automata can, when it has the right ideas, override. This is why we have a prefrontal cortex. We can override some of those impulses. And so it's often referred to as free won't. So you can't stop yourself from wanting to do things. You can't process the world in a totally novel way, but you can go, actually, I'm not going to act on that impulse. Now, I am fully aware only people that have a strong prefrontal cortex. So you're still beholden to your biology. But if you have a strong prefrontal cortex, but a bad idea set, you won't override those impulses. So I'm just trying to maximize everybody's ability to control their life as much as our little automata brains will let us. And to do that, you've got to have a belief system that makes sense. And so whenever I encounter these ideas, I want to stop talking about them as quickly as possible because it does not serve anybody. It is far better to just act from within the simulation and say, it feels like I have free will. And so I'm going to act as if I have free will, and it really will improve your life. And that's almost certainly why the fact that we are automata is hidden from us. And it took a whole lot of study for people to finally reveal scientifically that we actually are automata. Until then, evolution realized, no, you need to bury this. You need to hide from this being that it's an automata so that it will learn well from its environment.
You remember tariffs? Remember when we
vaguely
remember that?
Used
remember
to be
that
a thing.
Remember
it's
that
a hard
was a thing?
transition. Sorry, chat. If anybody had anything to say and we left you behind.
Nah, people are over it. The trade deadline, remember he had the 90-day pause that happened all those many months ago.
Yep.
It's coming up. It's on July 9th. So he just had a trade deal with Vietnam, and we're officially at 2.5 trade deals, one with the UK, one with Vietnam, and a resource deal with China, but we still haven't gotten to the trade and reciprocal tariffs with them. But Trump tweeted yesterday, "It is my honor to announce that I have just made a trade deal with the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. After speaking with To Lam, the highly respected General Secretary of the Communist Party of Vietnam, it will be a great deal of cooperation between our two countries. The terms are that Vietnam will pay the United States a 20% tariff on any and all goods sent into our territory and a 40% tariff on any transshipping. Transshipping is when things go from like China to Vietnam and then to America and stuff like that.
We're going to stop pretending we don't know what's going on.
Yeah. In return, Vietnam will do something that they may have never done before. Give the United States of America total access to their markets for trade. In other words, they will open their market to the United States, meaning that we will be able to sell our product into Vietnam at zero tariffs."
Wow.
It is my opinion that the SUV, or as it is sometimes referred to, the large engine vehicle, which does so well in the United States, will be a wonderful addition to the various product lines in Vietnam. Dealing with the General Secretary To Lam, which I did personally, was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I love how he ends his tweets.
What is with the thank you for your attention to this matter? I don't know. It's like
he's trying to make it like his tagline. He's trying to make it
I guess. I mean, I have a weird one too, so I'll forgive him, but it is
What's your
strange.
tagline?
Until next time, my friends, be legendary. Take care. Peace.
Okay. I like how you
Always.
did the voice and everything. Huh?
Drew?
You were ready for that.
Oh my God. I've said it so many times. The great irony is that started as oh God, I have to end this episode. It's like my first episode. And it just came out of my mouth. And I was like, I must come up with something better.
Yeah.
And then I forgot again. The second time I said it again, I was like, damn it, I got to come up with something better. And then by like the 7th time, when you really think about it, people are like, no, I kind of like it.
Yeah.
And then 1,000 episodes later, you're still saying it.
I definitely messed up the overlay. My bad, bro. But yeah, there is something to this, because he had his whole cutout cardboard of all the different countries that we're having these tariff deals with, and we're gonna get so many deals done, and it seems like the clock is running and the deals haven't been coming in as fast. Well,
so I'll say this. Yes, I think compared to what was promised, like we're some tiny sliver. At the same time, we've taken in like $120 billion in tariffs already with no inflation. So I think people would be pretty hard pressed to say that the tariff apocalypse happened. And so what they'll say is, well, he backed off, so he didn't actually do the tariffs. In his defense, he did say from the beginning, either I'll put this forward and they will back off, or I'll leave it in place and we'll make money. And so we'll see what the final analysis is, but we haven't had the inflation that everybody told us. He's backed off of most of them to make sure that we can get deals done. Will it be enough that it actually matters? Will it be this really small thing, kind of like with Doge, where it was like, yeah, we found whatever 190 billion, but nowhere near the $1 trillion that we were promised annually. So it's possible that it ends up being that, but we'll see, man. I don't know. Trump uses chaos, and we have to see over time how that plays out. And we don't have enough data to know if everything is working out, but we do know that inflation has remained low. So right now the economy is fine.
Yeah.
Night Going said, stop. No, that is so wrong. The effects are starting to be seen. Bless you.
Thank you. I forgot to take my meds.
Stop. No, that is so wrong. The effects are starting to be seen. Trade volume is down and the economy has shrunk. It was expected to grow.
So give us the data that you're looking at. I'll happily look at it. At last check, our inflation was like 1 point something. And
the economy grew. I'm sorry, Nightwing. I love you. But yeah, that was the wrong take. The economy actually grew.
Tom is a Trump apologist. Billy, let's play a game. It's called Map What's Actually Happening, regardless of whether you hate the person in power or not. That is a far more useful thing. When you spend energy trying to shove me into a camp, you could spend that time and it would actually help all of us. So even if you hate me and just want to see bad things happen to me, if you can put forward in the community, Tom's mismapping, cause and effect, here's what's actually happening, that stuff goes a long way. I have learned you can make a ton of money off of understanding cause and effect. So if all this live becomes is you guys helping me map cause and effect better, that's a win for me. I don't need to be known as the guy that's always right. I'm happy to be known as the guy that put together a community of people that are way smarter than him and constantly put forward better ideas. But I cannot look at the outcome of what Trump has done so far and be in hysterics. But if you guys see data points that I'm missing, also a month from now, it could all fall apart. For sure. And if it does, I'll be like, oh, well, it just took longer than expected. And this is all trash. That's why I keep saying midterms is when we're going to have a better sense, because there will be consequences at the midterms. And if people are not feeling good about the economy at the midterms, even if his policies end up working in 5 years, it won't matter. He will become a lame duck. And at that point, I will say it ended up being a fail politically. And I mean, honestly, at that point, I'll be like, it failed politically. It's going to be changed. So we'll never know in the future. But.
G, can you share the screen? Sorry, Brutus Lugo. I love you guys and I love your dissent. And I just like talking in numbers. The economy added 147,000 jobs in June and the unemployment rate trickled down to 4.1%.
Let's go.
Suggesting that tariffs and interest rates and other headwinds have not yet caused employers to pull back significantly.
Let's go.
But I will say, just because the economy is fine doesn't mean that housing affordability has changed.
Bro, we're about to drive off a cliff.
Doesn't mean
clear.
that the deficit isn't at its highest. So by no
Very
means are we saying that tariffs hasn't blown up in the way we thought it was. We still have a lot of other problems that we need to work for. So I am personally not saying Trump is the man. I am personally not in line to march to his parade. But let's actually talk about like the things that he's doing wrong as opposed to trying to
what are the numbers we have beef with?
Yeah.
And then we can talk about those. The number I have beef with, like Trump's big, beautiful bill adds $5 trillion to the debt. That's moronic.
Yeah.
I don't know what other words I need to say.
Yeah.
When it's dumb, I say it's dumb. I don't even know if we need to engage with that kind of stuff anymore. I don't know if it's helpful. It's fun because it like spikes me emotionally.
Which that makes it fun for me.
All right. Well, there we go. We're going to keep responding then.
I will say though, like Jerome Powell has been getting a lot of slack because
Too late, Jerome Powell.
yeah, he should have been cutting the interest rates. His whole thing is we haven't seen this tariff thing play out, so I'm not going to lower rates. I'm not going to do anything. And then the tariff blowback comes up.
Look, they're admitting that we're probably going to lower rates in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
They are admitting that the tariff thing hasn't played out, that it has not caused problems.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying they want to keep watching. It's a good thing that he doesn't hop to it when Trump says to do something. That's why you have a separation between those two. Would it be advantageous to the economy at this point if he lowered rates? Probably.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to artificially lower rates if that's not really where we're at. But if that's really where we're at, and it does seem like based on inflation, for sure that's where we're at, because I think we're at 1.5. So yeah, like let's get some growth going, baby. Everybody says we're gonna have to grow our way out of this, given that growth is our only way out, and we need to free up some of those interest dollars. It wouldn't break my heart to see that come down, even if only for 6 months a year, so that we can refinance at a much better rate, free up those dollars, give everybody all the entitlements that we want to give them up to a balanced budget. Like that would be the game plan. So again, you have to be careful of lowering rates artificially. It's not like you can dip it for a year with no consequence if that's not really where the economy is at. But I think that a cautious but steady move down is a great idea so we can refinance the debt, free up those dollars, and start balancing this budget.
Brutus is back saying,
Let's go, Brutus. All caps?
the ADP National Employment Report indicated a loss of 33,000 private sector jobs, significantly below the expected gain of 115,000.
So now we're battling. What are the two different things that we're looking at?
That versus what you guys just pulled up, I believe.
Yeah, that's okay.
So this is annual pay, it looks like.
Yeah,
not
no,
necessarily
because
jobs.
we don't look at private sector jobs when we talk about job growth. So every time we talk about that there is a report, that's a national program. Now, yes, you're right. A lot of those jobs that were growth are public sector, and that's a lot of people's beef with the government, that it's growing and it's artificial to even use the jobs number.
Boo.
So yeah, so to your point, we should be looking at those private sector jobs. But if that's the standard we want to now have, we now have to go
Jesus.
retroly back.
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
The numbers aren't going to be as good. So,
Biden was a bloodbath.
yeah, okay. So I'm not trying to play gotcha. I'm telling you guys, I'm not Team Trump. I'm not trying to play gotcha. Let's focus on the things that are actually happening. Let's talk about how terrible this bill is. But stop trying to dunk on the jobs. Look at how many jobs we lost. Like, that's not, we have better arguments to focus our energy on.
What is because I do think that it's absolutely ridiculous to look at public sector jobs as if those were actual jobs that we're creating, because you're just now doling out more printed money.
Yeah.
Regardless of Biden's in the past, it doesn't matter to me now. How much did we decline as a percentage?
As for the jobs or?
Yeah, private sector.
Private sector, it was 33,000 in June.
As a raw number.
Yeah, private sector employment shed 33,000.
And they were expecting it to go up?
Annual pay was 4.4%.
Increase.
The increase was 4.4%.
Right now, that's ahead of inflation. Substantively.
changes in private employment, negative 3, da 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 da. But that's the thing, like, because there's good producing jobs. So a lot of those losses are in service producing jobs. So if we go through the actual numbers, there are certain sectors that are increasing while others are decreasing. So professional.
But there's a net loss.
There's a net loss.
Yeah. That's what we care about.
Yeah. So yeah. And
okay. Net loss in private jobs is not good. And if that's a leading indicator that tariff uncertainty is causing people to withhold investment dollars, then this is something that could absolutely spiral.
I feel like the beef comes from our next thing, which is Microsoft. Microsoft is announcing that they're going to lay off 9,000 workers.
Dang.
While specifically, they are laying off 2,300 in Washington, while simultaneously requesting 6,300 H-1B visas. So
you've got beef with the H-1B visas.
I feel like if I'm laying off 1,000 software engineers that are in America, and I'm requesting 6,300 software engineers from other places.
What if, and I don't know if this is the case, but what if there's price parity? So they're not doing it.
No, they're definitely cheaper labor.
But I'm saying price parity so that they're the same. They're not doing it to get somebody cheaper. They're just doing it to get somebody better.
I call BS.
But so we're
thought
experiment.
Oh, hypothetically. Got it. If they were doing that.
Because I'm trying to map out if this is a no more immigrants or if this is a no more cheap labor.
I thought both of those were the problem.
Not for me. Companies should get the best and the brightest from all over the universe. Yeah. I want people that match our values and that will help America build the best companies ever. If people think I'm anti-immigrant, they are incorrect. I am anti-illegal immigrant. I am anti-immigrants that don't share our values. But I'm all for, I love me some foreign-born Americans that want to come here with, and plus, I mean, the other day, like I was telling you, you're going to have a lot of Patels and Changs like in your companies because, bro, those people are culturally, they're hardcore. We got to educate these kids. We got to get them into STEM. We need hardcore people that are innovating and pushing the envelope. And America is just not on that page right now. So I want to see America thrive. And if that means we got
my nephew on blast, but he's working at a Fortune 500 company. He did an internship there, did the rotational program. So he's been there 2.5 years, whatever like that. He just said a whole department was eliminated in the America. Again, don't want to put him on blast, but they are now starting they basically moved that department from America to Mexico, and the starting pay went from like 130 to like 85,000.
Yeah.
And it's like, so it's one of those things where it's like, they said, yeah, you can move to Mexico and get that job, but you're going to have to learn a new language. You're going to have to move and all these things, and you're getting paid 40% less.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's like, you know, companies are going to company. At the same time, Microsoft just announced that 30% of their code is written by AI. And then Zuckerberg jokingly, well, Meta, we're trying to get that to 50. Correct. So that's even more people that are going to get laid off. So it's one of those things like the labor market is doing well, but it's not going to be for long.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see. It may go completely soft. It may be apocalyptic, but it could also be that new jobs come on board. And yes, your candlestick makers are in trouble, your lamp-lighters are in trouble, but there are going to be a lot of people that find new jobs, and kids find their way as they enter the job market to do amazing things with new technology, jobs that we just cannot imagine right now. And I know I keep coming back to this, and by the way, everybody, because I'm about to talk about video games, stay tuned. We've got Ross Scott joining us today from the Stop Killing Games movement. Excited to talk to him. Let's go. But we're able to do so much more in the game than we would have been able to do otherwise. And now we're a game studio that might not otherwise have been able to exist because the quality of game that we can put out for the budget that we can put out like really allows us to compete. And that's super exciting. So I get it. At one point we had over 100 people. This is largely part-time, but we had over 100 people working on the game at one time. And I get it. We don't now. However, we'll actually be able to put out a game that competes. And if we can use that as a way to then build up our company, it lights a path for other people to start with something small, using technology to perform at an outsized rate. And now you get, because one of the things in my last deep dive that was really distressing is how movement between classes in America has used to be the best in the world. The social mobility, we're now 37th. And so it's like we're just calcifying. And part of the reason that we're calcifying is it's so hard to build something. And so if we are able to leverage technology to make building things easier, you'll see a crop of young people, if we can get them culturally in the mindset of, I want to build, I want to work hard, I want to do something truly innovative, and we can instill that in them when they're young, then they'll leverage that technology to do incredible things. And I think the only reason that we're having to import so many people right now, which as a business owner, I'm here for, I've done very little of it, but I'm totally here for it, is because I want to get the best and the brightest that share our values working here in America. As long as we're not doing it as a way to import cheap labor, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's a kick in the ass to parents, to young people, to like flip that switch in your mind. Building is awesome. Pursuing something you care about is awesome. And being out on the field competing with people is awesome. Like, it's the thrill of a lifetime. But we've created this sense that you're working for the man, you're being taken advantage of, being coercively controlled, just to get it back to that, by that evil boss of yours. Yeah, I'm not here for that. That is the worst mental setup ever.
Yeah. Somebody in the chat just said they went through it, that they lost their job in April. So we're rooting for you guys. I know this has been a tough job market. I have a lot of friends who are also laid off, unemployed, looking for work. Hollywood's on fire right now, so a lot of people in the entertainment industry aren't working. So it's just, you have to figure it out, unfortunately. I got to take a page from Tom's book.
Let's go. We win them over one person at a time, everybody. Pookie, chip on your shoulder mentality. I like it. Let's get mad. In my darkest moments, the thing that comes to my aid when I'm like fatigued, I could not bear another step, I stop thinking about the beautiful things that I'm trying to build. I start thinking about the people that are convinced that I'm going to fail, the people that actively want me to fail. And that's what keeps me going. Now, that's my mental illness. I'm not inviting anybody into that, but I will say there is light energy in the world. There is dark energy in the world. You want to spend the vast majority of your time in the light energy, but boy, oh boy, is that dark energy powerful. So for short bursts, it can be very potent, very potent.
Yeah. Okay, we got, I think Ross is calling in now. We're playing set up on that, just getting technical difficulties, but then we're going to jump into that.
SC2, I agree with you.
But going back to the Stop Killing Games movie, even Elon retweeted it, Asmongold posted it, and I want to say it's close to 1 million signatures.
Let's go. How close?
Oh!
Wow. The recent hype, man, they were at like, I think below 50% right before Asmon, Moist Critical, somebody else I think involved in that. Pirate Software. Got into their big beef, and then that brought a ton of awareness.
But yeah, surprisingly,
today we're going to be doing our little part, Drew. We're going to do our little part.
I just want to read the top of the petition real quick, just to kind of level set, because I know we've been playing commentary, but this is exactly what they're kind of asking for. Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement started to challenge the legality of publishers destroying video games that have sold to customers. An increasing number of video games are sold effectively as goods with no stated expiration date, but designed to be completely unplayable as soon as support from the publisher ends. This practice is a form of planned obsolescence and is not only detrimental to customers, but makes a preservation effectively impossible. Furthermore, the legality of this practice is largely untested in many countries. Over the past year, we have successfully escalated complaints on this problem to consumer agencies in France, Germany, and Australia, and have brought forth petitions for new law on this problem to various countries. A list of actions taken can be viewed here. As of 2025, most consumer action on this matter have concluded, and we are awaiting decisions on it from several governments. However, there are a few remaining avenues left where people can participate if they are eligible. So right now, this is the EU initiative. If people would like to sign,
the EU just never met a regulation they didn't like. So I'm not surprised. It's smart to start there.
Yeah. It seems like it's interesting. I started to see it now get out of like the gaming circles. Again, once Elon tweeted it, I seen a lot of people kind of chiming in, not really knowing what it actually is.
Also, so man, good, dude, Moist Critical and Asmongold are massive. They're massive. I don't know Moist Critical's numbers as well, but Asmongold does like 150 million a month. He says he has 4 channels. He showed one of the channels that he said wasn't even his main channel. It was like 172 million. So I was like, Jesus. So between his quote unquote long form, which is the 150 number, and the shorts channel that he showed, the 172 million number, I mean, that's over 300 million views a month right there. So you get him talking about something, and and then plus Moist Critical, I think is bigger than Asmon. I'm not 100% sure about that, but he's Mahusiv.
Yeah. And it's funny because the actions were complaints about The Crew. That is the game that like started this movement, which is like hilarious.
Why is that hilarious?
No, because like that being like the grounding force, like if you just support The Crew, it would have been good. And now the whole industry is about to get regulated.
Yeah, it's interesting. So the thing that I want to talk to Ross about is I want to see what he's talked to engineers about. When are we bringing him on, by the way?
He's in the waiting room right now.
Oh, cool.
Let's
bring him in. Let's bring him in. Because this is what I want to know about. Yeah. So rather than having to repeat it, will I be able to see and hear him? Where?
We are working on that as we
speak. Whoa. Well, welcome everybody. Is this our second live guest?
Yes.
This is our second. There he is. What's up, man? Welcome.
Thanks. How much lag is there? I'm not sure.
Right now it feels pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like I'm on Mars. Okay, great.
No. You're coming in right after we stop talking. We hear you. So first of all, congratulations, man. When I first came across what was going on here, you were like at right around 50% of the signatures that you needed, and this was only like 7 or 10 days ago. You're now at 99%. So you got to feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, though I'm apprehensive because it's partially an illusion. Not all of these signatures are going to count. We have to go overkill on it.
Interesting, because some people are trolling you, or what?
Maybe. Also, if somebody just screwed up, that doesn't count. They throw them out. So it's like, if you can't spell your name correctly, then people have to make up for the people who can't.
That's funny. So is there like an industry standard of, hey, make sure you're 30% over or 50% over or whatever?
Yeah, they're saying 20% is usually pretty safe. 40% should be really safe, but we might be the first to get the lots of trolling. We're not sure. So
right. Okay, that's interesting. So when I first came across this, I was first of all, I'm not a big fan of regulation. So I don't know if you know anything about my background. I've been an entrepreneur for 2.5 decades, built multiple successful companies. And ran up against regulation when I was in the food industry that was really obnoxious because it was just biologically incorrect. And so I developed a very aggressive frustration with regulatory bodies that don't understand the thing that they're trying to regulate. And so when I first came across Stop Killing Games, because I'm a game developer as well, but admittedly, that's the thing I'm probably least known for because we haven't released our game yet. So it's like, I've been in game development for 3.5 years. So it's like such a huge part of my identity, but publicly there's like 150 people that have played the game. And so that's like all that have any sense of that's a big part of what I do. But admittedly, I'm not the person coding, so there are going to be things that you might be able to help me understand that I have an aversion to, but it's just out of ignorance, and you can help me see the path forward. But when I first read your documentation, my initial response was very similar to pirate software. And I was like, hold on, there are agreements that I have with third-party vendors that make my back-end software work. And so how would I leave this stuff up? Because obviously they're not going to go for it. And so now I'm beholden to like only being able to use people that also agree. It's just like one of those things where you're like, there's an onerousness to this potentially that I didn't feel there was an awareness of in the documentation, but you were very kind and came into our post and said, hey, actually, we've looked at more of this than you think we have. And like, this is going to be easier than some people think. So as somebody building an MMO, help me understand from a technical challenge perspective, why this won't be the kind of thing that becomes problematic for a small developer.
Okay, well, the first thing I would emphasize right off the bat that a lot of people miss is this is not retroactive. So all these existing games that are out right now, that's something the industry would have a voice in the room on. So one compromise that might emerge through this process is, hey, you know what? This is going to go into effect in 2028, but we're just going to grandfather in all existing companies. So the game you have out right now, it's going to be exempt. That could be an option. But after that point, then you would have to start adapting and basically creating new deals.
So Ross, on that, is you're thinking that the server side architecture developers will just go, look, this is an easy enough problem to solve. We've just never had the impetus to solve it. And so we're going to make this happen. Is that the kind of thing you're hoping comes out of this?
I think it's, well, the analogy I've made before is kind of like back in the 60s, auto manufacturers were fighting against having seatbelts be mandatory in making the cars. And the thing is, that can be an upfront cost. You know, if you've made your factory, it's not tooled for that, that is a cost. But then once it's set up, it becomes relatively negligible. But that was an inconvenience. And one thing to mention quick, you'll be glad to know that this is a last resort for us. We didn't start off thinking, oh yeah, let's regulate the industry. It's more, we just kept seeing game after game after game get destroyed, and the industry promising more of it.
And what do you think drives that? And I assume the answer is going to be profit motive, but walk me through what you think. And I know that this will be largely projection, but it'll help me understand how you see it as a lover of games. Why do they kill these games?
Well, it can vary depending on the company culture. I think the overwhelming reason is they don't have to put any forethought into it, so they don't. And the people making decisions on it aren't necessarily the same people making the games, so they see it as just kind of raw product. You know, to them, it could be toothpaste, insurance, whatever. And it's like, even if it's a minimal cost, especially planned for upfront, well, that could still be a 0.1% cost. So let's just get rid of it and not even worry about it. That saves us hours and that sort of thing.
And is there anybody? Go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was gonna say, for a few companies, it's more intentional, where they have a sequel in that series and they want to usher everyone over to the sequel. So we're going to shut this down, and we think our sequel is going to make more money, and that's the way to do it. Overwatch might be an example like that.
Yeah.
Where they just kind of had 50 million players, shut them all down. Okay, now you're on Overwatch 2, and you can't play the old one.
How long did they overlap for?
I'm not sure they did at all, but I mean, maybe it was
really. So it was like Monday we got Overwatch 2 coming out, and what a shame that on Tuesday Overwatch 1 no longer works.
Yeah, I'm not certain on that. And there might have been like a beta phase for a few months or something like that, but.
Very interesting. Now, is there a company out there that is doing this well that you guys hold up as like, yo, model yourselves after these guys?
There's a handful. I mean, the thing is, actually, most video games, this isn't even an issue, because as long as, like, when the company just ends support, as long as it's playable in some fashion, then it's already compliant. There would be no change. So you usually have to hone in on the ones that do have an online only requirement. There's a handful. A recent one was the game Knockout City, where it was kind of a dodgeball game with multiplayer, and they realized, oh, the studio's going down, so they patched in a capacity to have private servers to connect to one another, and now they can wash their hands of it, but people can continue playing it.
Now, on that one, because this is where I wish I were more technical than I am, because I would be able to solve my own problem here. But when you look at that, is there a way to, and maybe this is exactly what they did, where you like package up your server side application architecture and you give it to the community, but in a way where they're not able to grab what could be proprietary IP?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, two aspects of that. One, they wouldn't be gaining any new intellectual property rights beyond what was sold. It's just that they wouldn't be able to have those taken back from them. So, you know, I said in the comment, you know, if you buy a Grand Theft Auto disc, you don't own the rights to the Grand Theft Auto franchise. You know, you can just run that game for you, or, you know, in your living room or something, and that's it. For the security aspects, there are ways of doing this. I can give some suggestions, though we're not actually mandating any one way for two reasons. One is that actually could run afoul of existing copyright law. If I say, no, you have to release the server binaries, or you have to release your source code, that could interfere with other laws. So what we're doing is we're focusing on the end outcome where, okay, the game just has to be in a working state, and it's up to the developer or the publisher how that works best for them. And we're also not asking for necessarily 100% of all features too. So if they can give you 95% of the game, but then including something like matchmaking is going to be a nightmare, they can cut that out, and it's a reasonably playable standard. Now, the suggestions I've been given from talking to a dev, bit out of my comfort zone here. Well, one, they won't give out the source code. You won't have to give out anti-cheat code, because who's worried about cheating then if you're all running it privately? You can kind of police yourselves after that. I've heard the risk wouldn't be that much different than just trying to reverse engineer the game while it's already active also. So all private keys and codes and security features can be removed from the game. I'm told being preserved with feature flags. And I might be straying from your question a bit.
No. You're actually giving me the exact kind of things that I'm trying to think through. So when you're building something, whether it's a game or it's a manufacturing process, there are two ways that you can go about something that you've done that's novel. Way number one is you patent it, and then you obviously have to defend it. And way number two is you keep it as a trade secret. And so, unfortunately, I just don't know enough about how you would package up server-side stuff where it can't be viewed. It may be easier than I think, and then this is really easy. But that would be the kind of thing where I could see games really pushing back on is, hey, wait a second, we did this novel thing, game didn't work, we're shutting it down, or for whatever reason we want to shut it down. But we don't want to give up this trade secret, this thing that we've done that makes our, stability, distance from server, we can still keep ping really low, whatever, obstacle it is that they think that they've done something fancy on that they want to port over to their next game. They don't want people to know how they did it. Again, that might be easier than I think to package it up. I'm just so aware that you can have stable code that will, it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It will degrade over time. And so it's like, how do you permanently give something to people that won't begin to break?
That sounds like an exotic scenario. I think we would need more details on. I mean, there's stuff like bit rot, but
what I'm talking about is as people upgrade their computers, you'll see that things just stop
well, yeah,
working.
that's easy. Yeah, for that, no burden at all on the developer. It would just have to comply with whatever you were supporting the day you shut it down. So if Windows 12 comes out tomorrow and it doesn't work on it, well, tough. That's not on you. That's on the customer then. They can figure out how to get that working. Okay, yeah, no, this would not be endless support whatsoever.
Ross, it's really been interesting diving more deeply into you because you are eminently reasonable. When you hear people talk about this whole scenario, it's eminently emotional. What made you so passionate about this?
From my perspective, it's almost like a Twilight Zone episode where why don't other people find this to be like a norm? That you buy things that you get to keep them, or that this is a creative work and it's preventable that it's getting destroyed. So we should just take the minimum steps to keep it. I don't know. I guess my brain's just wired differently where I just kind of jump to the conclusion of what's going to happen, So if a game can just run indefinitely, oh, great. Well, then I have my life to enjoy it. I'll get around to it when I want to. But if it's on a timer, then wait, what if that game is wonderful and I want to come back to it in 10 years or something like that?
Has there been a game that you were like, yo, this one meant something to me and now it's effectively gone forever?
Yeah, it's the bigger ones I think are, well, we'll see. The Crew was actually kind of like that for me because I actually think it's a so-so game overall, but the map is just astounding, where it's like a miniaturized version of the continental United States. I have not played any other game that kind of gives you that feeling of just driving across the country the way it does. Like, it's just staggering. So the thought of that being shut down, that stung, though I would have done it anyway, even if I didn't really care for that game, because it was a target of convenience, because a lot of things checked off with us being able to send that to the consumer agencies and get it checked, that sort of thing.
As a health check on the industry as a whole, so as a developer, and for better or worse, I'm old, I have probably a very different view of what gaming is, where gaming is going, gaming culture, than somebody that's really grown up in the era of always online, building friendships, while playing games. That wasn't a thing for me. Like, I came up on the original Nintendo. Didn't start playing PlayStation until after I'd graduated college. Never got into PC gaming until I was in my 40s. So it's like I have a really different sense of what the gaming community is. Like if you had to give us a health check, what are the frustrations? Why is like you start hearing even people like Elon Musk make games great again? Like what's working? What's broken? What does the community, and I know you can't speak for everybody, but if you had to kind of, as the proving to be very reasonable person that you are, if you had to sort of aggregate the biggest, most shared loves and frustrations, what does that look like?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not too far behind. You have some gray in my beard. This actually probably isn't where most of the focus is. So I'm really happy it's on that. Prices going up. That's a big one. With new games coming out at $80, that's because it was at 60 for just the longest time, and then it was at 70 for a little bit. Now we're at 80. I think I may have heard 100. Nickel and diming.
Teased.
Yeah, nickel and diamond gamers where say you buy the base game and that was 60, but then there's an extra level or two. That's an extra 20, and then here's some weapons that you want. That's another $10 and stuff like that. That a lot of complaints about that sort of thing.
What's the community vibe on free to play?
I think it all depends on the game. I think a lot of people love it if it's done right. I enjoy it if it's done right. So.
What does done right look like? What are some free to play games that you're like, okay, this is honorable?
Okay, I enjoy Path of Exile. That's a fun one. Let's see. I know there's more.
Do you make a distinction between Path of Exile 1 and 2?
I haven't played 2 yet. I'm waiting for it to go to free to play. I'm on the cheap scale.
Hey, so that's good. That means you're going to be fighting for the average person, which is pretty clear in the way that you move.
Yeah.
So.
Like I almost always do my shopping around right now when there's a major sale. Then I'll just get like 12 or 15 at a time. I'm like, all right, now I'm set for 6 months or longer, Okay, what are some other good free to play ones? Okay, this is embarrassing. I forgot if it's free to play now or not. It was given away for free on Epic Store, but Destiny 2 I thought was interesting.
Oh, free to play, man. That was my jam for years.
Yeah, that game. Okay, see, I can really appreciate the aesthetics of a game. That game is gorgeous. The levels in there, you feel like you're in an alien world. See, that's really what lights this fire for me, because I want to go back eventually and see that game again. Or, hey, maybe run a hack on it later so I can get it working in VR like I'm in there. So, what are some other... Okay,
well, you think about that. The idea of people are creating these worlds and, for a minute we get to live in them, but there's always this risk that they go away. That's the thing that really resonates with me. The thing that drew me to game design, because I always thought I'd be a filmmaker, long story, but that's my background, went to film school, all of that. But the gaming industry just ended up completely consuming the film industry. And as I got more into game development, you really realize you're building a simulation. You have to think about physics and you have to think about the way things move. And you realize, wait a second, I'm building a rules-based world. And you put all that time and energy into building this rules-based world. And for me as a developer, it's like, I just want that to keep developing forever. And listen, there are economic realities. You can certainly hit a wall and get to the point where you can't anymore. But being able to continue to push something, to make it bigger, to create that world that people can come in and inhabit, I don't want to see it end. And it was pretty shocking for me when I realized how expensive servers are. So it's like, you really can hit a point where it's like, well, I've got the game, but I can't afford to support the servers anymore because we don't have enough players or whatever. And that, is ultimately the thing that would kill a game's legacy. Even like if we will grant some developers that they love the game as much as you, they don't want to see it die either. But there are certainly, if you've gotten to that point and hadn't planned for it, there's just that brutal reality of this is thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, or in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars per month just to run the servers. And I think it's tough for companies to start scaling that stuff back. So if there is a way for myself, just speaking selfishly, to button that up in the end so that that it can live on, even if you end up, God forbid, hitting that wall, is pretty interesting.
Yeah, shoot, my thoughts got a little scrambled there. But for the winding it down, I talked to a developer before, try to prepare before coming on here. I was actually surprised how much can be wound down. So there, for all the stuff that might be on like an Amazon Web Services or Google Stacks, a whole lot of that isn't part of having the part that would be needed for end of life game. I mean, for end of life build, because those are about either running the business or you're talking about the cost, maybe having up to like 10 million simultaneous players or something. That's where the costs really spike. So you could get rid of stuff like cross-region save, anti-cheat, payments, analytics, 99% uptime, crash reports, voice chat, failover. So you can just rip out all this stuff that you do need those online servers for, and just kind of give them the shell that still runs the game. And instead of supporting thousands of people, it might support 20 or 40 or something, which might be all that's needed if it's at end of life anyway, because the player base is dwindled. The other thing I was going to say that I wanted to emphasize, in case people didn't realize, none of this would affect your business model aside from having a plan until end of life. So if you want, actually one of the examples that we give in this is the game Guild Wars. That was sold in 2005. It is still going. So they never stopped. And so as long as the developer wants to keep supporting it indefinitely, they can. They don't have to give out any code at all. So,
and do you know, what's their business model? Are they DLC? Are they skins? How do they keep the revenue?
I'm not sure now. There was originally like box copy where you bought it in the store for $60. They went to free to play later. I imagine they did go the microtransactions. I know more about 2 because my wife loves that one. That's another free to play one. She goes nuts about this. Yeah, she gives me a few of the gray hairs because she'll want these skins. I'm just like, you have like 100. Why does you have to pay for another one? And yeah, that works.
Now, let me ask. So as you see this moving forward, one of the hurdles is going to be legislation, certainly in the US, is going to be tricky. Are there developers that you think that you could get on board that would help navigate the legislation in terms of like, hey, ripping things out is actually hard, so that's not the way that we want to do it. We want to do it like this. Do you have anybody that's been responsive, or have you gotten blanked by all of the major companies?
Well, for major companies, it's been relatively radio silence. Probably the largest ones not that large. They're kind of, was running with scissors who made the postal games. They're all for this. GOG gave some limited support of it, but they're more of a publisher rather than developer. I mean, I guess they do kind of develop a lot of infrastructure related things. I had a thought. Oh yeah, with the U.S., look, we're approaching this as the U.S. is a lost cause, or I am. Nothing is going to touch U.S. law on this. What we're kind of doing here, but the thing is, if the EU market's pretty large, 450 million people. So if this goes through and companies realize, okay, we need to have an end of life build if we want to sell our game in the EU, once it comes to end of life, they may as well roll it out globally because the work will have already been done. And there's an example of this happening before where I think it was in 2014 around there, Australia sued Valve for not allowing refunds in their games. And Valve fought it and they lost. So rather than just allow refunds for Australians, they said, you know what, we don't want to deal with this with every country. We're just going to roll it out globally. And everybody got the benefits. I think it'll be a lot like that.
Makes sense. Well, Ross, brother, man, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been great. I'm very impressed with what you pushed through.
I got one more.
Hit us, Drew.
We got to ask, what's your favorite game? What started the love of gaming?
It's like asking your favorite movie or your favorite song.
I know. I got to put your feet to the fire.
Okay, I'll rapid fire some. How about that? Deus Ex, Supreme Commander, They Are Billions, Subnautica, Super Metroid.
Nice.
I could keep going, but it's just have to think.
It's a good list. I've not heard of They Are Billions.
It's a strategy game where they just send thousands upon thousands of zombies at you, and you have to like hold walls. And I don't know. I just loved it. It was interesting.
Nice.
That's awesome. Man, tell people where they can find the petition, sign it if they are on board. How can they support?
It's at stopkillinggames.com. However, it's only open at the moment if you're an EU citizen for the big one. There is one going on for UK citizens or residents, though that one's way iffier. But yeah, it's convoluted. I'm not eligible to sign it. I live in Europe, but I'm not a resident, so I don't qualify. My wife signed it, though. So.
That's her. So, well, God bless your wife. Ross, thank you, man. This has been wonderful. Hopefully we can connect again. This has been great, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate everything you're trying to do to fight for people that love games, man. I'm here for that.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother. You got it. Take care. Peace.
Awesome.
That was dope, man.
That was wholesome.
Lovely guy. That was wholesome. Lovely guy. Clearly passionate about games. It's interesting. I'll be very hopeful to see if he can get people that are making games, that are engineers, that understand how you solve these problems, to help the legislators put something together that makes sense. Because as a game developer myself, I am only concerned about doing something that's onerous. I think we were talking about this off camera, but when I think about, okay, I'm a small upstart game developer, how do I get people's attention? And you get people's attention by making the very thing that people are saying, nobody's making it like this. And if the thing that people really care about is they want to know end of life support, then I want to be the guy that's like, hey, we got end of life support, baby. Thought about it from day one. And so, but you have to make sure that it doesn't become onerous for small developers, because I just don't know the technical challenges yet of what it would take to package up your back end. But if there's a way and it's reasonable, and it's a way to get market share and a way to get people excited about what you're doing, man, in a heartbeat. So yeah, it's really interesting to see, and also to get, this is the first time I've been up close with regulations when like I care as a builder. When we were back at Quest, oh my God, it was driving me crazy. The government was literally doing things that were horrible for people's health, and people that were doing things, we could measure the positive metabolic impact of our food. And yet they were trying to legislate, not us personally, but like the legislation that they were trying to put through, which thankfully never got passed, but what they were trying to do to make out like fat is bad for you was maddening. And I was like, man, we're going to end up having to lobby. And I was like, this is nuts. And so this is the first time where I'm back like in the driver's seat of something where regulation would actually impact me. And it's interesting to see like, okay, well, getting involved early, if you can get this done right, get this done in a way that developers can get excited about, so that they don't feel like they're fighting against their customer base because their customer base wants something that, like, because when I first heard about this, I was like, yo, that's going to be, for a MMO game, that's going to be effectively impossible. But if that's just limited understanding of how you can package up a backend, great, let's figure that out. Then I can use this not only as a way to preserve my own game, which would be devastating after years of building this thing. Like, I would rather it live on. And so if there is a way to do that, and at the same time get a frustrated player base excited, it's fantastic.
I think it's interesting. We're kind of going in that direction of like decentralized like economies, and I think that it's noble that a gaming community would rally against it and say, hey, we'll take care of it. You don't got to manage a server. Just give us the code. Like so I just think that there's something noble about that we love this thing that you built so much that we're willing to spend nights, weekends, whatever, to mine it. I remember when I used to work at T-Mobile, so I was really into phones. So I used to have Android phones. I used to hack them. And I remember I used to be on
I love the way you just slipped that in.
Oh, yeah. I used to be on like XDVA developers, and people were like, yeah, I have a new Android 17 leak, and I got this in. And people would spend hours building models, building like different, so you can have different infrastructures on your phones. And these are people across the world like working together. And I think that's when, humanity, not to sound cheesy, but like that's when we're at our best, when people are passionate about something and they're willing to do the work. So I can understand if this petition was like, hey, give us money and you have to pay for it. Like, okay, then you're being a jerk. But it's just like, hey, we'll manage the servers. We'll take care of it. We'll handle the community building aspect. Just give us the keys to drive the car. Don't just take everything from us. So
yeah. I mean, part of the plan with Kaizen is we see ourselves as building a container in which the players are going to create. I mean, you know this very well, but for anybody that is still with us that joined for Ross, I read Ready Player One and was like, oh, we can actually build this. It's going to take a long time. And certainly where the game is at today is but the first step towards that thing. But in creating the rules for the world and creating the container and setting it up from a story perspective so that players can create within it is very exciting to me. So whether that manifests as modding, whether that manifests as like a Fortnite style, you can build inside this, or it's just, hey, we built a level and have to submit it and it goes through a QA process, whatever we do in this phase one. But getting the builders in the community excited is awesome. And if we can do that without having to forfeit essentially the intellectual property, it's exciting, man.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. It's been an interesting saga. I don't know how closely you paid attention to the Dota 2 thing. The Dota 2 thing's interesting, and the Dota 2 thing built scar tissue for Blizzard that people are still living with. And I think that so what happened, for people that have never heard the story before, Blizzard creates this game called Dota. Dota becomes insanely popular. A mod of it basically becomes Riot Games, League of Legends. And the fan base ends up falling in love with this mod better, more. Forget the name of the mod, like the Defense of the Age, Ancients, something like that's pretty close. And in fact, that's what Dota stands for, Defense of the Ancients. And it creates basically a new style of gameplay. But Blizzard gets pissed because this is like they see as a violation of their terms of service, but they didn't make their terms of service tight enough. And so Valve literally ends up buying this modded version from the people. Blizzard gets iced out. They end up changing all of their EULAs to make sure that this can never happen to us again. But they clamp down so tight that like if you create something inside of one of their games, like they own everything, has nothing to do with you, even if you put your own creativity, invented your own characters and all that stuff. And so it's like, that's probably not the play. And so other companies, whether Roblox or Fortnite, have found a way more builder-friendly EULA where it's like, hey, we're going to benefit as the game developer, but so are you. And I think that's really the future. And so this feels like it's, a part of that. I need to look more closely at it again. I still don't understand the technical ramifications well enough yet. This is why I hope that Ross is able to get a developer to help them navigate because the legislators presumably will want advice. And so this becomes Ross and some developers going into the EU Parliament and saying, hey, this is how I think this plays out. These are the areas. Don't hem people into this. But over here is where you can, do this very simple checklist of things that if you're doing it from the time that you start architecting your back end is very light, is not going to be, unduly difficult. So anyway, if done well, this can be great. I, remain somebody who's skeptical of regulation. But when you see a clear problem that's growing where your player base is screaming at you as loud as they can, like, we want you to solve this, getting it solved well makes sense.
Yeah, we'll keep monitoring the situation. They're
All right.
so close to
Shout out to
views.
Ross.
Oh, yeah, shout out to Ross. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, if you're in the EU, man, and this resonates, go sign away.
Definitely sign away. All right, let's talk about Alligator Alcatraz.
Let's do it.
This thing, I thought it was a joke at first, and then I seen the meme of the first pick in the Alligator with a person picking up the
Literally. Now,
the alligator.
do we know that that's actually what this is for? Probably not, but I think this gets the idea. This is the thing. What do they call this? This just straight misinformation where it's like it's captioned such that you would assume, even though nobody ever said, that's exactly what this is. So I don't know if this is actually it, but hey, I have not played Space Marine 2 yet, Ben Lamine. By the way, Mason, you have been very quiet. Has anything that we should have touched on before we jettisoned off of the...
Honestly, no. The only thing that people are asking is what your favorite games are, and then they've been going back and forth a lot about different games between themselves and the fact that the petition is only about 600 away now.
That's awesome. The greatest video game of all time, people are going to hate me for this. The greatest video game of all time is Minecraft. That game...
Recency bias.
Oh, no. First of all, that game's been out for whatever, 15 years. It is an unbelievably simple set of rules that creates an insanely unpredictable set of outcomes. People can build anything they want. You can raise a mountain. You can create a mountain. It's really, really unbelievable. I was just completely blown away by that. Yeah. Obviously, there are more sophisticated games, more adult games, because my game is aimed at 11 to 15-year-olds. I'm more skewed towards I want to see things that are nice and simple, straightforward, that you don't have to have dark themes and all of that stuff. So I'm more towards that. The game that I've played the most hours of is Destiny and Destiny 2. I've clocked a serious amount of hours in those games. I grew up on Nintendo, so I certainly have like a hardcore love for Nintendo games. Double Dragon was my favorite game
I
as a
remember
kid.
Double Dragon. That's
oh
awesome.
My God. Anything with martial arts, I was obsessed with. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game was dope. Yeah. Ninja Gaiden ruined me as a kid just because I could not beat it. But that was a lot of fun. And then shout out to Mario 3, Super Mario Brothers 3. That was how long it took me to earn enough money to buy my own Nintendo because my parents refused. So a lot of trauma and scar tissue there that may have something to do with my game development. But yeah, those are the games. And Red Dead Redemption. I couldn't do it, Justin. I couldn't do it. I don't like games that are on rails. Oh, the game that really blew my mind. It reminds me of this because it was on rails, but this game really did blow my mind, was Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yeah, Metal Gear was good.
That when I had to switch controllers to beat Praying Mantis, bro, to this day, I remember that. That was so cool. That one melted my brain.
Somebody put Contra in the Contra was so
literally. If you've ever heard me say what I technically say is up, down, left, right, B, A, select, start, but I know that's not the real code, but just to speed run it, but up, down, left, right, B, A, start. Come on. I still have the code memorized to get you 99 lives, unfortunately, because that was the only way that I could beat Contra. But could turtle tip with the best of them. So yeah, man, games have been incredible in my life. I am a huge fan.
Nice.
We also have 3 super chats left over from yesterday.
Oh, we do indeed. Yeah, we should probably get to that before Alcatraz.
Let's do it.
Yeah, and so I saw all 3 people in the chat now. The last person just came in. So
let's go.
First one, Truth Devon. Tom, your Realpolitik video is one of the greatest videos I've seen. It makes a lot of sense. Wow. Thanks again for making us live in a reality. Making us live in reality. Okay. Why do you think people don't think people are not okay with the reality of humans? That last sentence got very...
So people hate Realpolitik because they confuse describing that chimpanzees tear each other apart literally, viciously, and violently with thinking it's good that chimpanzees tear each other apart. So nobody's mad at Jane Goodall, but the second that you make those same observation that humans are vicious and cruel and power hungry and will, they'll do horrible things to get what they want. People think that merely observing that means you're condoning it. Mm-hmm. And so Realpolitik just gets pushed to the side. People don't want to talk about it. People don't want to look through that lens. They want to look through the lens of Putin is a uniquely bad guy. That's way more comforting. Who's the bad guy? Who's the good guy? Not everybody's in it for their own self-interest. Mm-hmm. And as an American, that's hard because we're the world's policemen. And so I want to believe that we're moral and just, but the reality is that we are in a Realpolitik world and we do what we can get away with. And the only restraining force is your internal culture. So that doesn't mean that I think America's unhinged and committing genocides. No, we have a culture that restrains us and makes demands. But if you read about what we did in the Vietnam War, it will curl your toes. It's horrifying. And so you realize, oh, wow, that was the first one that had media. And so it really began to check us. We started building a totally different mental model for what we would and wouldn't do, which then influences how we handle Iraq and Afghanistan for all the horrors that I can only imagine came out of those. Mm-hmm. Compared to some of the things we did in Vietnam, we were way restrained. Yeah, the realities of Realpolitik force you to face the realities of human nature, and we are an animal.
Sweet. Second one from Work Hard Hodl Bitcoin said, been MIA for 3 weeks, been working hard and stacking sats.
Let's go.
Dropping some super chat love, missed you guys.
Oh, thank you. Well, welcome back. We appreciate it. 2 days in a row. Thank you. And we're on an odd day today, so really appreciate it.
And last one from Benjamin Nickel. When the government creates money via debt and printing, they don't create the money that pays the interest. The bubble has to grow.
That preach. That's a big part of I think it was in the Jekyll Island video that I really beat that part to death. That is the part that people don't understand. There is no way to stop money printing until you stop doing deficit spending. Like you literally have to get out of the Fed business. You've got to reharden your money. Not going to be easy. Otherwise, you have to print. Crazy but true. Crazy but true, Drew.
Crazy but
Drew.
Okay, there's been a lot of beef with the alligator Alcatraz.
In chat or just in general?
In general. Some were comparing it to concentration camps. Some were saying that this is a bit overstated, like an overhand. Ron DeSantis pretty much summed it up that we can't house every illegal immigrant, so we're going to build this to help them.
We can't have every illegal housed in our jails because we actually have non-illegals who need to be housed there when they commit crimes too. So if you're doing the immigration enforcement and you're putting people, and there is a process to it, so they have to go. So if they're temporarily held, then they can be repatriated to their home country. That takes burdens away from the state of Florida and for Florida residents. But this has been an airport there that I think our goal is, if we do buy it, we will probably eventually just eliminate it and try to let the Everglades grow over it. But it's been there for a while and it's been used. And so we had a request from the federal government to do it. And so
they didn't
Alligator
build it?
Alcatraz it is. And so you will see that be done. You will have it'll be a force multiplier. It'll help.
Yeah.
All right, pause it for a second.
This was from a week ago, and now it's up and running. This is a aerial shot, if my scroll would work, of exactly what it's laid out. So these are the different tents, fenced in with gates, and those are the alligators.
That's a lot of alligators, Drew. Okay, here is this video is why the right loses. I hate that reality is just brutal. Reality doesn't care. Reality puts you in a bunch of tents in the Everglades surrounded by alligators and you look like a lunatic. You can't, there's no way, yes, there's no way to talk about this without seeming like a lunatic. So the right just always feels like they don't care about people.
Yeah.
But this, unfortunately, is one of those, okay, what do you want us to do? And then people will find themselves saying, I want you to do the thing that feels compassionate in the moment, even though the long-term consequences are going to be horrible.
Yeah.
But there'll be enough delay between the action of just letting them go and the consequences. So let's just do that. And humans will choose that option over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And this is the thing that always gives me the, like, if I want to make my stomach drop, I just have to think about Thomas Sowell. And there, I think it was Coleman Hughes that said, it's a bit like staring into the abyss to realize that Thomas Sowell has been making all this sense for 40 years and we haven't listened to him. And I'm like, yeah, it's true. I'm never going to be able to explain something as well as Thomas Sowell. And he's been saying it for literally decades. And this is a guy that grew up in Harlem. So not a privileged upbringing. He said on a hot night, he would sleep out on the fire escape, but he was at one point, I think he called himself a socialist and was like, people are always like, well, hold on a second. How did you go from being a socialist to being like Captain Capitalism? He's like, I went to work for the government. And he's got this incredible story where he's like, you go work for the government and you just see the inefficiencies. And he was like, wait a second. These are the guys that we're giving all this money to? This is a terrible idea. And so ends up coming around and becoming conservative. But it's like, man, his quote that was in, I think it's in my most recent deep dive that comes out on Monday. He's got this quote and he says, the more I look at the history of intellectuals, the more I realize that they are a wrecking crew, tearing society apart bit by bit, exchanging what works for what sounds good. And it's like, yeah, this sounds terrible, but you do have to have somewhere to house criminals.
Yeah.
So it's tough. I get it. It doesn't feel good, But nonetheless, you
And
got
to
to
your
have a
point,
solution.
that's where the friction comes from, because on one side they have what seems like the worst solutions to the problems. Let's build a jail in the middle of the Everglades and surround it with alligators. And then on the other side, you have, okay, let's not do that. Let's let everybody come in here and let's give them all a pat on the back and a job. So there is something in the middle that should be a bit more grounded.
I wish there was something in the middle. But yeah, we are in a populist moment, which is all about lunatic fringes. And listen, the people who like this, they really like this. Like, this is like, yo.
Yeah. There was, when I Googled it initially to
Alligators.
pull it up, alligator Alcatraz merch was the first thing that popped up on Google.
There it is.
Like,
There it is.
Like,
People are in their feels, Drew. People want to be riled up emotionally. That is the moment that we are in. Let's go. Let's go. Let's be mad on both sides.
yeah. And I'm pulling up C-SPAN because it's still up in the House, and they are just still holding up the speech. Hakeem Jeffries is now has a 6-hour speech trying to hold up the big, beautiful bill in the House.
He's doing a filibuster?
Before the holiday break.
Has he made a commitment? Like, I'm going to do this.
I haven't seen
all
the
night?
commitment, but I've been hitting refresh, so that way we've been breaking news on this the last 2 lives. So I was trying to see if this will be a threefer, and it hasn't. So it's interesting, man. I think the more we dive into politics and kind of the day-to-day of it all, it's very easy for people to feel less engaged and feel like disempowered. Do you think that like people should get into politics? We need more like fresh blood, or is it just
You have to get out of a populist
thing.
moment.
Oh, so
You have to get out of a populist moment. If you don't get out of a populist moment, you're just going to get more Mamdanis, more people screaming from the fringes, more Trumps. Billy John, if you can, break down, how have I lost my way? Where do you think I was previously? What are the things that I believe now that you think are me losing my way? A, I'm always open to change. So if you see something I'm missing, I'm here for it. B, I have a feeling that there you don't have an answer, but I'm open. Love being surprised. Tim Riley coming in
Super chat.
with that super chat.
My econ professor hated Thomas Sowell, called him delusional for saying markets just appear. At the time, I didn't have the ammo to argue, but looking back, maybe spontaneous order is the point. Are markets born or built?
Markets, you can actually read in history and watch the markets spring up over time. There's a book written by Neil Ferguson, spelled now anyway, and about the Rothschild dynasty. And you read the book and you see them invent things like government bonds that pay interest, and they have to come up with how do you pay the interest. And you realize, oh yeah, like this stuff just like starts as one small thing, then it becomes another, then there's a technological innovation that creates this opportunity, and it just builds up over time. So whatever we're going to call that, this is not a part of Thomas Sowell that I'm familiar with. So him saying that markets just appear, that sounds a little bit like they pop into existence, and it's more like they come out over time. Is probably more accurate. It starts with, I've got a sheep, you've got clothes, and I'm going to trade you a sheep for clothes. And everybody realizes that that's like a horribly inefficient system, because it's like, I need the sheep, but I only have clothes, and I don't want you don't want the clothes. So now I've got to go find somebody. And so it becomes a nightmare. And so everybody comes up with glass beads or shells or whatever. That ends up becoming gold. Over time, it's going to arise it's going to arise naturally from the bottom up. But then it gets into elite cliques, and they understand things better than you, and they create things. Like, you've all just witnessed a wild financial revolution, and I don't even think people understand it. Michael Saylor pulled the entire gambling apparatus of the stock market on top of Bitcoin. Like, that is so wild, and people don't even understand it.
And now that's like a thing now. Like,
yeah,
so many other companies are now following those footsteps.
Bro.
One company built it off of Ethereum.
It's crazy.
So yeah,
it's crazy, and it just happened right before our very eyes. It was brilliant. Has put him on a path to becoming one of the most wealthy people of all time. I think it outperformed whatchamacallit.
The S&P?
No, well, definitely outperformed the S&P. I think it outperformed
NVIDIA?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know how he got that from that hand motion, but I'm Drew. I'm very impressed. Very impressed.
I was looking for this clip from Atlanta, this old FX show, and he's waking up and his like roommate is like walking around and he's eating something out of a cup, and he's like, "What are you eating?" He's like, "Breakfast cup." He's like, "That's not a thing." He's like, "Everything is made up. Like, stay woke." And it's just it's such like an interesting line. Just everything is made up.
It's true.
When you really take a step back, it's like yeah, there is. None of this thing was here until it became a thing. So
dude, when you look back in history and you realize how different things used to be, it's scary because there are so many things that humans used to do to other humans that are just absolutely gut-wrenching, atrocious. You can't fathom that it's real, but it's all real. Yeah, it is wild. Yeah. Beliefs, values, biology, religion, all of that stuff, man. Changes over time.
All right, let's talk about this AI tech war. I think it's very interesting. So we talked about Meta's super intelligence team.
Yep.
Sam Altman sent an
couple bill on it.
Yeah, a couple bill on it. Sam Altman
On
sent an
staff.
internal memo to this team saying that what Meta is doing will, in my opinion, lead to very deep cultural problems. But there's this line that stood out to me. He says, "Missionaries will beat mercenaries."
Yeah.
And there's something to that. Like, do you think that there is some truth to building a team and just kind of should you try to pay for the best talent to get the outcome as fast as possible? Is there something to being noble?
You should definitely pay for the best talent that you can get that are mission aligned. He's right that when you take businesses on average, there's a reason that when the founder departs the company usually goes into a managed decline. Apple's the best example of that, where
Nike
it's still
also
making
was on
money,
it, yeah.
printing money like crazy. However, they are now in the profit extraction business, not in the innovation business. And so they'll coast off that for, I don't know, another 15 years or so. And then somebody's going to come along that's going to outperform them, erode their moat, and then they'll be gone because they don't have the vision to continue to innovate. And so part of the reason that you need the Missionary founder is they'll make really weird choices that nobody else would make because they understand why they're doing what they're doing. So for instance, not to pat myself on the back too hard, but here at Impact Theory, I've reinvented the channel multiple times because I have a why behind what I'm doing. And the second, so I'm trying to help people live a better life, a more effective life that takes them towards an honorable goal. Nice, easy way to round it. And as soon as I was like, oh, just doing mindset stuff, it's actually not taking me where I wanted to go. So I'm going to pivot. Now, it was madness from a revenue perspective. And everybody was like, you're going to hurt our revenue. And I was like, yes, I probably am, but we'll build back. And we did. And then just as we were surpassing record highs, I was like, okay, that actually isn't taking us where I want to go anymore. So I need to pivot again. And so we did same thing, drops revenue, and then we build back up. You and I are in the middle of, I think, our fourth reboot here. And each time we have increased we've receded first only to then increase the size of what the show can be. And I think we'll do it again. We're already on the upswing for you beloved community members who've made this possible. We went from, I think we've increased in the last 2 months by over 50%. So wild swing, wild. And so that is incredible. But you're not going to do that if you're the operator that's been brought in to do a turnaround or to protect the legacy. Yeah. You're only going to do that if you're like, I'm on a mission. I know what this is, and I know we have to change. It's going to be very disruptive, but we'll ultimately get where we want to go. And so Zuckerberg's done an extraordinary job with first Facebook, now Meta, of doing exactly that, of everybody thinking he was crazy. And then he buys Instagram, ends up being a critical acquisition, buys WhatsApp, critical acquisition. And so you can think of this as him. I mean, he bought Scale AI. So he's buying companies, he's stacking the deck with talent. Now, if he brought people on that don't mesh from a vision perspective, if they don't share his mission, then Sam is going to be right. And Sam will end up winning the race because Sam understands hey, we're doing it for this reason. We're trying to bring AGI to make the world a better place. That'll make them make certain decisions. It might make them work longer on a Friday night than, even, believe it or not, even $300 or $400 million will make you work. If you don't have that, this really matters to me. This is meaning and purpose. This is bigger than anything. You're going to be hard pressed to have that energy. There's two kinds of energy. There's cellular energy. You're getting sleep, you're eating right, you're exercising, and your literal mitochondria can produce ATP. Okay, you have to have that. But then there's psychological energy. I believe in the thing that I'm doing, and therefore I'm going to work really hard. And the story I always tell, because it's a true story, and it was the time where I was probably most confronted with what I was doing. It was a Friday night. I was in my 30s, so it was like everybody else is partying, clubbing, and I was under a wrapping machine. I had broken the skin on my knuckles, so my knuckles were literally bleeding, and I'm trying to fix a heat coupler on the machine to get it up and running again. It was 2 a.m. on a Friday. I'm surrounded by gang members because that's who worked in the facility. Long story, but I'm surrounded by these fucking tough guys, and my knuckles are bleeding, and I'm like, we're going to get this done because I'm here for my mom and my sister. They are morbidly obese. I'm going to lose them before I need to, and the hundreds of millions of people just like them. Mm-hmm. We're going to lose them too early if we can't solve this problem where people can choose food that they want based on taste, and it happens to be good for them. In that moment, I wasn't thinking about getting rich. I was thinking about my mom and my sister. And I was like, I'm willing to fight for my mom and my sister. And then inspiring these guys with, this is who we're fighting for. And so they all know people that are in that similar situation. And honestly, with them, we had the other thing of like, what I would tell them is, you can have anything you want in life, but you've got to be willing to pay the price. Mm-hmm. This is Quest University. Your tuition is making protein bars, but I will teach you anything you want to know about entrepreneurship, basically to control your own life. Mm-hmm. And so those guys took it seriously. And for the first time, I saw the power of the statement. If you encounter somebody who has no hope and you give them hope, dude, the lengths they will go to make good on hope for the first time in their lives is extraordinary. Mm-hmm. And it was unbelievable. It was like this incredible time where we had this outlet of, we're going to make this thing. We're going to go from nobody knows who the hell we are to being a household brand. And they could see that it was working. And it was working on the back of me. All the things that I would years later start doing on camera, mm-hmm. I was just doing in real life in this setup where it's former drug dealers, gang members with Bloods and Crips working the same line. Like, it's just hard to express what that environment was like. We were in technically Paramount, but it's like right across the border from Compton. So we were in the neighborhood that was on fire recently. We were in that fucking neighborhood, mm-hmm. and just really doing something out of a sense of mission. And when you have that, you really can get people to go hard in the paint. If you only have money, you can be in trouble. But if you have both, where it's like, I believe in what we're trying to do, and I believe I have a good leader, and I'm making money that I can provide generational wealth for my family, now you've got something pretty special.
Necro Giggle said, people refuse to see the world as it is. Jay Peterson said, those who choose to face the void grow stronger, while those forced into it break, as we are doing.
Oh, that's
we forced into a break.
Way to say
are we doing more harm by shielding people from hard truths?
For sure. 100%. Like, I mean, this is the conversation we were having at the beginning of this live, which I have no doubt will be used against me at some point. But that's just true. Mm-hmm. Like, people have to take responsibility for their own lives. Why? Because I actually care and I want to see them have a good life. And I know when people start trying to legislate, this person can't think for themselves, you're going down an excruciatingly dark path of, you just think most people are victims and they can't stand up for themselves and they can't do anything extraordinary. Mm-hmm. And that was the first time. So back at Quest, gang members as far as the eye can see. And I remember I was talking to this kid and he was so smart. And I was like, bro, why have you done nothing with your life? You are smarter than me. What is happening? And he looked me dead in the eye and it was just so nonchalant. He was like, my mom told me that the world doesn't want to see people that look like me succeed. And I was like, what? I was like, that is the worst fucking advice I've ever heard in my life. You want to know what delusional shit my mom said to me? What? I could do anything I set my mind to, but I was going to have to work my ass off. And so here we are. So I'm going to give you the same speech. You do anything you set your mind to without limitation, which I know is a lie, but you can do anything without limitation, but you're going to have to be willing to pay the price. So I don't care if the world is actively working against you and only you. You can get so good at something that people can't stop you. And so those guys, look, only 2% of them changed after hearing that speech. But the 2% that changed, I get texts from them to this day, and that's over a decade ago now, to this day, like, you changed my life. I'm doing this now. I'm working here. I'm making this much money. I mean, guys that always assumed they were going to end up in jail. It's incredible.
It's interesting.
We've got a super chat.
Let's go.
Brutus Lugo. Tom, to be honest, a month ago, if some regular person would have proposed Alligator Alcatraz as an option, you would have probably said we can do better. Now you're like, what's the alternative? We need to put them somewhere.
Brutus. Also, what else did I say? This is what makes people seem like they have absolutely no compassion. This is why they lose. Like, I get it. This is not ideal. As Drew said, we need to work our way to the middle. I totally agree with that. So I'm not like, Alligator Alcatraz is amazing. I'm just saying you've got to put them somewhere. That's the place they've chosen to put them. There are going to be second and third order consequences to that decision. It is going to be used against them because there is a better way to do this. That better way would be to have a mix of compassion, but this is real and this is what we have to do. And we're not in that moment. And that's why I say the punchline is you have to get out of a populist moment where people don't want to see the other person punched in the face. The reason that there is Alligator Alcatraz merch is because there are some people that fucking love Alligator Alcatraz. That person is not me. And I said that. You have to understand there are going to be times, and I'm sure I switch between them so rapidly that I do myself a disservice, but I'm talking about what is versus what ought to be. Alligator Alcatraz is. And it is because we're in a populist moment. I'm not saying it's what ought to be. I'm just saying it is. You have to put them somewhere, and we're in a populist moment. So people that are caught up in the emotions, put them in Alligator Alcatraz. Now, admittedly, I'm not going to make Alligator Alcatraz a hill that I'm going to die on. Whatever. We made a horrific set of choices that now have consequences. But they're going to keep having consequences. So consequence, you let way too many people cross the border illegally. That was really stupid. But now you've set a trap for the right, and they're going to put people in Alligator Alcatraz. And that is a terrible fucking look. And that is really going to make more people hate them that otherwise would have been in the middle. Now, those people look at that and they say, this is disgusting. There's no humanity in this, and you're going to lose more of them. So describing the world the way that it is. If I were advising them, I would say, don't do this. This is really bad. You want to allow immigrants that are here illegally, that you are going to deport. You want to give them dignity through the process. That'll go a long way. Mm-hmm. People are going to rail against you for sure. They're going to make out like you're a bad person. But one, having that level of compassion and integrity will make you feel differently about you. It will make you communicate different things inside your own circle, for sure, for sure. The problem is we're not going to elect that person right now. We're going to elect Donald Trump because Donald Trump promises to punch people in the face. That's what people want when they're in a populist moment. Again, I'm not saying that's the way the world should be. I'm just saying that's the way the world is. This cycle it just lives on repeat in history. And so let's look back in history and find out where have been the people that have broken this. It's being broken right now in real time by Javier Milei in Argentina. But guess what? He's a populist leader. He runs around with a fucking chainsaw and he screams and all of that. But he's actually turning around their economy. And I know you're going to hear mixed messages. You just need to look at the data. And so the data shows that in like the last 6 months, things are just going in the right direction. He's being fiscally responsible. And unfortunately, that's what it takes. But he will say things that are so god-awful. This is a paraphrase. This is a paraphrase of somebody else's translation, so I could be off. But damn, Drew, you're not going to like this. When asked in an interview, hey, there are people that are going to starve to death. And he said, basically, somehow, some way, people find a way not to starve to death. So I'm not going to help them. And watch, they won't die. Yikes. That's rough. People are not going to like that.
This brings me up to this meme.
But it's also true, by the way.
Only Ayn Rand was smart enough to predict that incompetence and envy for excellence will lead to dystopian social outcomes. Orwell thought we need total mind control. Huxley thought we need a permanently drugged populace. But Rand knew all you need is resentment. It seems like that's like a common like...
She came out of Russia. Yeah. So this is somebody who lived through the Gulag period and was like, oh yeah, I know exactly what this becomes. I was watching a video today of people sitting outside, Drew, without a mask in a very unpopulated area. And a security guard was trying to throw them on the ground, put their arm behind them. They were fighting wildly. Now, admittedly, probably best, especially, I'm not sure if it was a security guard or a cop, but follow instructions. But nonetheless, it was super tyrannical. Mm-hmm. And when you realize that people got joy out of reporting their neighbors for not following the rules, you realize, you know everything you now need to know about how Soviet Russia became Soviet Russia, how a tiny number of people in the Politburo could terrorize a gigantic, like geographically and gigantic population-wise, populace, because people resent other people and they want to see you suffer. That's the human mind. Very few people that rise above that. Sad, but true.
Jern, by the way, said markets are built by purchasing power. Purchasing power for the poor comes from entitlements. Without them, markets cripple.
That just isn't factually accurate.
Yeah, I feel like he's missing something there. Can you break
He's
that?
missing a lot. So the way that markets form is things that have inherent good come into existence. So you realize that you can tame a sheep. You realize that you can tame wheat. And so you specialize and you grow the wheat that's given to the sheep. One guy does the sheep, you do the wheat. Another person does the shearing of the sheep, though honestly, that's usually the sheep guy. And one guy makes the scissors that you shear the sheep with. And then all of that starts getting refined over time, and marketplace, like literal physical marketplaces, become a thing, and people go there and they realize, oh, this would be a lot more convenient if we had what we would call a currency that everybody accepts. And then a person rises up that is the most trustworthy because other people are clipping the currency and all that, which is all the stuff that people do. And you've got one guy, and I forget, there was a guy in Spain whose name sounds very similar to dollar. It wasn't exactly dollar, but that's where the dollar gets his name. There was this guy who just everybody knew. You can trust that guy. No matter what, you can trust him. Mm-hmm. His coins they're never tampered with. He's amazing. And so that's how all of this stuff rises. But it started with the thing that had inherent value first. And that inherent value is given to you by, Drew, if you can get this in a single word, I will be so fucking impressed. What is it? There is one single thing that we turn into everything else.
So what is the first thing, or what are we turning it into?
I mean, admittedly, it's a chicken and egg problem, but there's really one thing. Without this thing, everything else stops. You could have all the other things. If you don't have this thing, you have nothing. Now, you can also have that thing and nothing.
Time?
No, but great guess. The sun.
Sun.
Plants capture energy from the sun, and then animals eat the plant matter, and then everything else eats the animals because they just have the building blocks that you need to create proteins in your body. Once you understand what this really is, radiation flies out of a nuclear explosion in space. Now, you had to have like the amino acids and all that stuff. I get it. But man, oh man, is it pretty cool that plants are able to capture the energy of sunlight and turn that into cellulose, and then other animals are able to turn that cellulose into protein. It's crazy. And then we eat the proteins, and then our body goes, cool, I have what I need to build some stuff. Technically, we need protein and fat, but you get the idea. It is amazing. It's amazing. All from the sun. All from the sun.
Billy John said he answered your question when you asked him where did he go wrong, where did he lose his way?
Ah, cool. What is it?
And he said, Tom, you were building the next Disney through inspiration. Now you are a Trump apologist.
Okay. Well, it's specific enough, I guess. The great news is I'm still building the next Disney, though we'll see if I ever pull it off. That will be the question, but I'm confident. I feel good. Trump apologist. Okay, that's how people map the world. I don't think I'm going to get anywhere by saying for the 782nd time that what I do is map cause and effect, but that's okay.
SC2 Alexandro said, without time passing, the sun doesn't provide additional energy.
Word.
So Tom was kind of right.
Let's go.
It was like,
Drew,
you know those crazy open-ended questions? Like, I don't get 100%. I get like 20%.
That's fair. And without enough context, it is hard to get. That's why I never ask questions like that in an interview, because I'm like, oh, that person's like, I don't even know. I don't have enough context. Yeah, it's a terrible position that I put Drew in.
We've got another super chat.
Let's go.
Chat.
Let's go.
Yeah. From Truth Devin.
TS.
Tom,
Is Truth Devin going to brag about his Porsche that he just bought?
Let's go.
His 6'5"ness?
And a half. God damn it. You are always trying to make Truth Devin shorter. You see how he does you, Truth?
Tom, I first found you 6 to 7 years ago. Back when I was graduating high school, depressed and feeling hopeless. Listening to your mindset work gave me hope. You really do change lives. You also gave me the framework to think.
Oh, man. Jesus. Thank you, Truth. That means a lot. A lot, man. I love that. Thank you. And that you spent your hard-earned money to give props is not lost on me. So thank you. It's exceedingly kind. Exceedingly kind.
Is there like, because you said you gotten some pushback. There's been some people in your DMs, in your text messages that were like, hey,
On
bro.
which topic?
Yeah, like your
Basically
recent
every
pivot
topic.
away from
Yeah.
inspiration mindset to now talking about politics and things like that.
Yeah.
In those moments, do you just like, on to the next one? Like, do you have any of those like reconciliation moments where you think about it like, yeah?
Well, I think it's always, so if somebody's trying to hurt your feelings, step number one is always go, is there any truth here? Because if there's truth, that's why I always ask people, like, if you can get specific, because it really is possible that I know I'm trapped inside a frame of reference. I know that my frame of reference is wrong to some degree. So it's possible that that person sees something that I'm missing and I'm like, ooh, like that nudges me in a new direction. I find that when people are trying to hurt your feelings, they lead with the thing that they believe is most true. So people don't make something up to try to hurt you with. They take the thing that's really true. So the people that say that I'm a Trump apologist, they actually believe that. They believe that I mentally mapped this. Well, Trump said it, and therefore, like, I've got to find a way to make this make sense, either consciously or subconsciously. So when somebody hurls an insult like that at me, or maybe they don't even see it as an insult, they're just like, hey, I want to pull you back from the brink. You've been amazing in my life. And if I could just get you to see this, then you could be a more positive force, or, you know, however they're thinking about it. So I think it's always worthwhile to pause and go, okay, is there something here? When your ego isn't tied up in being right, it's actually kind of an exciting moment where it's like someone might actually say something that moves me in a new direction. So, I mean, more than most people, Drew, you have had a visceral experience with, oh, if you can convince Tom that he's wrong, he will switch. And you've been so responsible for so many of the changes that we've made here because you present an idea. At first, it may hit me wrong. You'll argue for it. You'll show me it. And then you'll finally say it in a way where I'm like, oh, shit, okay, got it. Or I'll see a piece of data where I'm like, ooh, there really is evidence to what Drew is saying is true. Let's go. And that is exciting if you build your paradigm around, well, I'm at X million views a month. If Drew's right, can I get to the 10 million? Can I get to the 20 million? Can I dwarf the big players in the game? And when you really want that thing, like when you want that outcome, it becomes exciting. So I get the thought of, like when I look at Fortnite numbers, Fortnite at any one time, I have 750,000 people, over 1 million. I mean, it gets high across all the different game types that they have. The thought of people engaging in what we've created, the thought of actually building Ready Player One, that's so exciting for me that it will keep me awake because I'm just like, oh my God, that'd be so cool. Like, I can't wait. And I get to do all this, and all the hard steps to get there are also exciting for me. And because I've spent so much time building a psychology that's like, no, you can get good enough to do this and like push yourself and challenge. And because I don't value myself for accomplishment, I value myself for the willingness to go like, I'm going to try to build the next Disney, knowing the most likely outcome is failure, knowing that people are going to laugh at me. So anyway, bringing it back to your initial question, always look at, is there really something here? If there is, learn from it because it can help you actually get to where you want to go. But when people are mismapping me, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Like, whatever. You're never going to be able to change the way that people think about you. All you can do is try to get good at articulating something that will be useful to them. So trying to defend myself is emotionally satisfying for me, but I try not to loop on it too much unless I'm like, no. If you understand what I'm really doing, it's going to help you. And so get obsessed with cause and effect. And if people challenge me at the level of cause and effect, hey, I don't think that Trump's thing doesn't work like that. Like somebody earlier was like, no, you guys are wrong. The job numbers are going down. And I think the cause and effect there is because of the tariffs. Then it's like, ooh, let's really pay attention to that. We pulled it up. We had that discussion. So we'll see. Great. I'm glad they put it on my radar. Cause and effect has so much utility that I can steel man what has happened inside of somebody's brain that will fight to be right instead of identify the right answer, but I can't internalize it. I don't have that impulse anymore.
Goofy Gimmick wants some clarification. Change to be right isn't looking for the right outcome, change in itself. And then they also mentioned...
I didn't quite understand that. So
yeah, I'm trying maybe in context it make more sense. So being right isn't okay. How does that work? Is this a we can't stand still mindset?
No. Being right's great. Like if you have the right answer, you're going to move forward faster than if you have the wrong answer. So the goal is always to get to being right. What I'm saying is don't build your self-esteem or your identity around being right, because then what happens is when you've been like, hey, there's no need to wash your hands between an autopsy and delivering a baby. If your ego is tied up in being right, when somebody goes, no, doing that is actually killing the patient. If you double, triple, quintuple down, hopefully you guys know that story of the Hungarian doctor who ends up dying alone, broke in an insane asylum because he was right. And everybody just went after him because to protect their ego and their reputations, they just could not accept that they had been wrong about it. Now, keep in mind, that guy had probably killed just as many people as they had, but he was just really determined, like, I've got to figure this out. And because his ego wasn't built around being right. Now, he obviously had fragilities because he ends up literally going crazy, but he found the thing and was like, oh, I'm here for this. Take even my interactions with Ross. My initial take on Stop Killing Games was Ross was just wrong. And he doesn't understand enough about how this works on the back end. Ross comes on, puts feedback on the thing and was like, no, we've actually gone, Stop Killing Games just passed, let's go.
Yeah.
Jotes, word, thank you.
Yeah, just hit 1 million.
That's dope. We had our little part, Drew. He did 99.9999999. We did the 0.01. So he put something in a comment on a YouTube thing. Mason points it out, says, hey, you should go read that. I read it. He's like, we've looked at this more closely than you think we have. There are developers that have a way around this. And I wasn't like, what does he know? I'm a developer. I know best. I was like, shit. Well, if he's got a solution for me because I care about my end goal, I care about cause and effect, let's see if we can learn more about it. So you want to be right. You just don't want your ego to be tied up in already being in a state of rightness, because that's where people end up fighting instead of going, oh, I want to find the right answer. And I'm an egomaniac about my willingness to find the right answer. There's a very important difference.
Yeah. And just a reminder.
Bill, you bump. Ricky Martinez, you know what's up.
The people who have signed the petition, just like Ross said, they're trying to get like a 20% over. So they need 1,200,000 technically. So we hit the official, but bots, things like that, you want to have a little bit of a cushion. So the petition.
Factages from
is ask, not ax. Mark Banker. Cool. Your comment got read.
What do you think about that? So you know that's an accented way to say it.
Yeah.
But it just feels so right. You just don't think about it.
I like how I talk. So
now, do you think of yourself as I actively speak in a way that's cool?
No.
So when you say you like the way that you talk, what do you mean?
I actively speak of the way in which the community and culture that I came from like listens to me.
So, but then why don't you think that? Okay, so that's.
But it's
not cool.
Yeah, it's not a cool thing. I talk very differently here than I do when I'm back home, because there's just words that don't apply to here.
And that's a Haitian thing, or?
Yes, I get my misconstrued euphemisms because I love my mom to death, but she speaks like broken English sometimes. So she'll say like, "Oh, you can't put the cart before the dog," as a point, like, so things like that. So sometimes I get those sayings wrong, but no, just in general, like the slang me, my brother, my friends and stuff talk, like the vernacular that is popular in the area in which I grew up. There are certain words that we just use to describe certain things.
But it's interesting. So I have a thesis, but you're on the inside, so you'll tell me.
Yeah.
Growing up, loving rap and hip hop, I always loved the way that Black culture talked. I thought it sounded awesome. Makes more things rhyme, blah, blah, blah. I go to England and I'm like, oh, they have a subculture known as Cockney that does the same thing, but they use what's called rhyming slang. And I'm like, that's interesting. They have way more fun with their language. Now, as somebody who's obsessed with words, I always looked at it as there are subcultures that I always thought knowingly have more fun with the language. But you're saying that it's not that. It's not like, oh, I do this because these words are more interesting.
Yeah, there's different layers of that. So first, Black culture is not a monolith. So Black culture in and of itself is sprinkled out. So how Black people talk in Southern California is way different than how they talk in New Jersey, Florida, fair. Atlanta, things like that. So my specific vernacular that I use is from the Northeast area. That's where I'm from. So when I describe certain, so there's a popular word called John in Philly, and it's basically a replacement for a noun, person, place, or thing. So pass me the John. You are a John. I seen the John. There go the John over there.
You saying John?
JAWN. So it's
John.
Yeah. But if I were to say it here, I would get a reaction like that. And then now I feel like I'm speaking to, it's like when a person from a different country is trying to speak English and people are like, what are they saying? Oh, let's say it again with your accent. So I feel like, so it doesn't necessarily.
Do you know Wall Street Trapper?
Personally, no.
But you've heard him speak and all that?
Yeah.
One of the things I love about him is he just uses the slang like hardcore.
I think you're from Atlanta.
But oh my God. Yeah. No, he's from Nolens. Like that's where he grew up. Okay. He's like went to prison, like the whole fucking nine. Not a good place.
I lump up the South.
But now he, I think, lives in either Atlanta or just outside of Atlanta. Yeah. His story is fucking incredible. I won't derail us on that. Unbelievable. He's bought like this whole like facility for kids. Oh, it's dope.
But there's not like a Tacoma word that people use. There's not something that your friends back home used to describe that isn't like. Because I feel like every subculture has their.
The only thing like so that I've had to shake off is we say both, and we say nuclear. Those are the two that I got made fun of for. So I had to fix both and
just
nuclear.
How you pronounce it.
Yes.
Oh, okay,
we'd say pop instead of soda. I mean, little things like that. But no, it was, I always felt like if I was going to have fun with slang, that I was taking words from hip hop culture. But I was so obsessed that I routinely took words from hip hop culture.
Gotcha. Just like you were saying, you used to listen to NWA.
Just like I what in NWA?
You said you used to listen to NWA.
Oh, bro. Who said used to? Yeah. NWA, Two Live Crew, I was all the way in it.
It's the holiday weekend. What you doing this weekend?
I am going to be gaming. So I'm in a phase right now when I have something that I love doing and it's moving me forward in my career. It's like a drug for me. So I will wake up obscenely early without an alarm. I'm just going to be that excited. So I'll wake up probably around 3:00. I will immediately get up. I will head down. I will strap into the PC and I will play any game that I think will teach me something that we need to learn for Kaizen. I'll play that until Lisa first wakes up and then finishes her drawing. So somewhere around noon. So I'll clock, 3 to noon's like 9 hours. I'll clock a good 9 hours playing. And then I'll be in pure husband mode. And Lisa and I will wrap ourselves, not in physical, but in a emotional cocoon. And we will just be spending time with each other, talking. We've heated the pool for the weekend, so now with my whole fear of the sun, that's a whole different thing. But
like half the pool is like covered, right?
No, literally 0.0% of the pool is covered. But I'll be doused in my chemical laden sunscreen. I will have sex until I think we're gonna light on fire. And just enjoy each other's company. I know that's weird because we work together, but it's you asked, and so that's the honest answer.
I appreciate the honesty, I guess. Yes. Truth Evan, what
about you? You've got your daughter in town.
Yes, her birthday is on Sunday, so cookout with the fam.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah, so we're going back. We're celebrating. Weekend. I have an official 14-year-old. I am crazy. Depressed. But we're gonna get there. We're gonna make it through. Man. We're gonna make it through. We're gonna get through.
It's exciting. She's gonna be an amazing young woman.
Yeah, she is a ball full of energy, and she's so unique. Her personality is very filled. She says things I don't expect. She makes me laugh. And I think that's the best part of parenting is because it's like, I teach you how to tie your shoes, and I teach you, to wipe your butt. But like when I make jokes and then you start making jokes back at me, and it's like, she's sharp. She's sharp like that.
There's a full person in there now. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Mason, you having a party this weekend too, right?
Yeah, we're hosting tomorrow.
Nice.
So have some people over.
Nice.
That kind of thing. So yeah.
I love it.
G, anything fun? Yeah. G smiled when he said that. So that where the wind blows. Who was your favorite rapper from the 80s and 90s?
Ooh, from the 80s and 90s. So Boogie Boys was the first group that I really got into. I was a massive NWA fan. So it's probably, would I have said specifically Ice Cube? Probably not. NWA is a group. When they split off, then I sort of fell out of that a bit. Yeah, the Boogie Boys was who I was obsessed with, like to an uncomfortable degree. NWA, Two Live Crew, Two Live Jews. Oh, I listened to that album a lot. Those guys were hilarious.
Is that the name of that?
That is real. You can look that up. Two Live Jews.
I don't want to get canceled.
Yeah, well, I'm already canceled. People think that I'm like unhinged on that. But yeah, Two Live Jews was dope. They were hilarious. Who else did I think was good? I dipped out of hardcore hip hop right around the Biggie Tupac era. There they are. So was never like, I missed that era and then got back into rap massively when Eminem came out.
Nice.
And then that sucked me back into like all of hip hop.
Yes. Straw Hat's going to Vegas. Let's go, Straw Hat.
Straw Hat. Be
what
careful.
Are you guys
man. They had
doing
some
in the chat,
crazy
man?
ass sandstorm.
Yeah. Is it sandstorm?
Yes. That like it's part of their monsoon season. It knocked over like 50 telephone poles or something crazy. Yeah, 300,000 people without power. It was, or maybe it was 30,000 people. Anyway, a large number of people were without power. It's pretty crazy.
Are you don't do movies?
Run DMC. I was big into Run DMC. Oh, Slick Rick. I can still cite Slick Rick lyrics to this day. MC Light. Nice. I can still do. Oh man, we almost had MC Light on the show at one point, and I was like, the guy that was booking the show, I was like, Christopher, if you get me MC Light, the second she walks in the door, I'm going to recite MC Light lyrics back to her. That would be amazing. Yeah.
Are you still go to the movies? Or you?
No.
You only.
We have a movie theater in the house, so I watch movies here, but I don't go to the theater. I haven't been to the theater in 2 years.
Oh man, I saw F1 last week. So good.
Oh, I want to see it. I cannot wait for it.
It made me like movies again. It was.
Let's go.
It felt like the 90s, 2000s.
Whoa.
Like, blockbuster popcorn movie. So yes, it's cheesy. It's funny. You laugh. You're on the edge of your seat. You cry. Like it makes you.
Dude, I'm here for it.
It feels like that. We need a lot of those things.
I love me some. Whatever his name is, Brad Pitt. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Kid Moon having a pool party. That's selfish, kid. I like pool parties. That's messed up.
Oh, 50 Cent, but that's more new school. He said in the 80s and 90s. 50 Cent did not come around until 2000.
50 Cent too.
Bro.
We've been trying to get him.
He might be the number one person I want to interview. He's unbelievable. He's so shrewd at business. I'm blown away by him. Blown away. Yeah. Very, very street smart.
Nice.
Yeah.
Loquacious mama. I raised 7 kids, and my baby left the nest last year. I'm in puddles, Drew. It's so amazing.
Oh, the last one.
See their inner beauty unfurl. Shout out to 7 kids.
Thank you for your
service.
Thank you for your service. I'm with Drew on that one.
Yeah, that is a handful. I got one that be stressing me out. I can't imagine multiplying that by 7.
That would be intense. That would be intense.
I do got to check out Ironheart. I haven't seen it yet. That's on Disney.
Ironheart is getting clowned on by the usual suspects. But that doesn't mean it's not good, but it certainly, we'll see. Top Gun Maverick was awesome. And yes, a lot of people were saying that's what pulled them back into theaters. Yeah. When it streamed, I loved it. You used to work for me at Quest. All right, let's go. Joel. Whoa. Joel, okay, Joelra. Now let's go. Joel, say more. What year were you there? Did we work together on the floor? Or was that once I was in the office?
David Naylor, Tom, where do you get your energy? Deep dive on it.
You know what's interesting, David? So I may have had the worst night's sleep of my life last night. It was so, and I'm not kidding. It was so bad.
Is your hand thing? What's going on?
No, my hand was fine. I text my sleep thing to my wife. Dude, I don't know if we can get a camera on that, but look how many times I was awake. Jeez. Bro, that was bananas. We're gonna get it. G's got us. Look, that was rough. That was not fun. And what was so weird is I had this like sense of like wanting to crawl out of my skin. I don't know how to explain it. I was like, what is happening? It was so weird. And I've been progressively, my sleep is getting weirder and weirder over the last like week, where I'm waking up at midnight. I'm waking up at 10. And I'm like, I just went to bed an hour ago. Yeah. I don't know what's going on. I have a hypothesis that because I'm now avoiding the sun, that my circadian rhythm is starting to get weird. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, and I was going to do it today. I was like, I've got to start getting sunlight in my eyes. But we started filming so early today, the sun hadn't come up yet. But I'm going to have to do something, man. Because if this is like a sign of like some sleep dysregulation that's coming on, that's going to be an ongoing problem, that's rough. So one, I was going to say, I sleep well all the time. I sleep until I wake up, period, end of story. I eat, my diet is unbelievably good. and I exercise. And so you do, and I mean, this one's maybe a little softer, but I have a loving relationship. So you put all of that together, and then I care about what I'm building, and that works. And so again, there's cellular energy. So my mitochondria is in good shape. And then there's psychological energy. And so you put those two together, baby. And here we are, even though I'm a little worried about later in the day, Drew. I am not going to lie. Come 3 o'clock, I have a bad feeling. I'm like, woof. This is rough. You're going to see me on the treadmill a lot today, Drew. That's what we got to do when we start getting that sleepy time.
Chat and Joel got back.
Let's go.
Super
Let's
chat.
go.
So first from Joel, he said, or they said, you gave me an interview at Paramount. I witnessed the growth, LOL.
Oh, man. So he's OG.
Nice.
Joel, can you send a photo, even if just privately?
You can DM it to anywhere. Just tell me which platform.
Yeah. Joel, shout out, man. Shout out. If you were with us back in Paramount, I know you did not grow up easy, my man. That is dope, man. I'm so stoked that you were here. And if there are more people from the old crew that we can get back together, I'm so here for that. I've bumped into a couple of them over time. It is awesome. I love reconnecting with people from that OG crew. It's super dope. Super dope. So any updates you have, man, what you're doing, I'm excited what your company is. Say more. Say more.
And the super chat, from Tanner Tipping, I run a one-man band IT company. A client friend of mine expressed interest in hiring me full-time. I have a second interview today, this time with the owner. What would you ask me in his position in this interview?
Ooh, okay. So I'm a hyper-tactical interviewer. So I look at what was that?
No, that's very accurate.
Yes.
You have the most unique interview I've ever went through.
Interesting. So I know what the job is. So you need to know what the job is well enough that you can't be bamboozled. And then you just start asking very specific questions because people will get very good at being like fourth chair and they can explain like the high level, but they can't explain the nitty gritty. And so high level people will bamboozle you and then you will get them in the company and you need them to actually do the thing and they don't know how to do the thing. And so I'm always asking very specific questions. So explaining how I interview somebody for YouTube is very easy. So I'm going to ask them very specific questions. Okay, what is more important? If I said, I have a video and I need you to tell me whether this video is successful or not, what are the 3 metrics that you would ask to see? Cool, they're going to give me the 3. I know what the 3 are. So if they don't give me the real 3, already red alert. Typically, one of the things that people will give you is either AVP or AVD. So then a follow-up question will be, what's more important, AVP or AVD? They'll usually stick with the answer that they already gave you because that's why they put it in their top 3. And then I will say, okay, now I want you to take the position of somebody who believes the exact opposite. What would a person who believes the opposite of you be queuing off of? And then you basically make them take the other side of the argument and explain. Now, when they can do that, you know they've got something going. So let's say they keep answering all those questions the right way. Then I will say, where in the interface do you find the AVD? Let's see what they say. And if they're like, I will, then it's like, this is somebody, again, they're not an operator. They're not actually doing the thing. Because when you do it all day, you're like, you want me to tell you from the app or the desktop? And it's like, give it to me from the desktop first. Okay, you go into the desktop, you click on analytics, blah, blah, blah. And they're going to walk you through how to actually get there. Somebody that's doing it all day, every day, they're going to be able to do it nice and easy. But if they've only been one of the people on the team, they're going to stay high level.
Yeah.
So
Russ Tanner said mercury exposure causes those things that you were talking about. Changes in circadian rhythm and the feelings you're describing.
Would I have recently consumed mercury? I mean, I have salmon, but I have not increased the rate at which I eat salmon. And this is so acute and so recent. But hey, I'm glad to have it on my radar. I doubt yet that that's it. But if it prolongs and trying to fix my circadian rhythm doesn't help, that is a very good thing to have in my back pocket. Thank you very much. What was your percentage for sleep? So time in bed versus time awake. Let's see if we have that here. No, but I can open the app. Let's see here. This is terrible TV. Sleep efficiency was 80%. Time in bed was 6 hours and 16 minutes. Time asleep was 5 hours and 1 minute. So you'll have to do the math because I don't see a percentage anywhere. Yeah, there you go. All right, I'll report back if it keeps up. Otherwise, I'll try some of the known things. Guys, thank you for being here. I know this was a weird day. Normally we go live tomorrow. We are not going live tomorrow. I wish you all a happy 4th of July. May it be a wonderful weekend wherever in the world you are. Really appreciate you being a part of this. Really appreciate you guys. If you joined us specifically for the Stop Killing Games session with Ross, shout out to Ross. Ross, congratulations, first of all, and all the hard work that you did. Man, if Ross can get this done, congratulations to all the gamers that are going to be able to get games that live a lot longer. And just really appreciate his time. And yeah, I can't wait to dig into it more as a developer and see if there really is a way to use this as a competitive advantage. The capitalist in me just can't help himself. All right, you guys are amazing. Appreciate it. And we will see you next week. Have a great one, everybody. Peace.